Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Tailosive Tech Live on YouTube. Hopefully T-Mobile's doing well. Hey, Ethan Dabish, welcome. Thanks for being the first person to join the stream. So we have a long story to dive into here. Oh, you know what? Before I do that, um, let me. I think one thing I forgot to do here is wipe the lens down. It looks just a little bit smudged, and I'm probably going to be live for a while. That looks slightly clearer. I don't know if that actually helps, but it's a tale as old as time. Apple and Tesla, basically two brands, two companies that are just far too similar with each other, and for some reason they hate each other despite having a lot of things in common. They make controversial design decisions. Both of the companies don't really support right to repair all that much. They make it hard to work on your own product. Both of them have very similar software UI element designs when it comes to Teslas and iOS, and it very much feels like people have described it as an iPad attached to a car dash. Both of them love to get rid of things before they are ready. Both of them like to think outside the box, do things that are controversial, and they're also known for being overly expensive but cheaping out on hardware. I'm describing a lot of the negatives, but I love both of these companies very much, and it's always annoyed me. Yeah, Beauty and the Beast. The question is, who's the beauty? I think it's Tim Cook. I think Tim is the beauty. Yeah, this was a crazy tweet. Hey, Michael, good to see you in the chat. Mike, Model Y Mike, and Michael Burkhardt as well. And there's another Michael too. Jeez, how many Mikes are there? But basically, I was freaking out yesterday. Sorry there wasn't any. I was planning on live streaming yesterday, but I had to spend basically all morning working on EV video, and then the rest of the day I basically spent working on the roof because we have some roof issues. But they're fixed. I fixed the roof. Drew is a handyman now. Anyway, I had a lot of help from my uncle actually. He did most of the thinking. But Apple and Tesla, I've always wanted them to get along. I've always thought that not necessarily a merger or a buyout is necessary, although I don't think it would have been the worst thing in the world for Apple to buy Tesla all those years ago. I just think that Apple, while they have similar design characteristics and they have similar design choices with software and hardware and removing parts, removing components, and trying to focus on efficiency and stuff, I think that Apple's mission statement is a lot different from Tesla's. Like, I don't even know the concrete definition if Apple does have a mission statement. It's not as well known as Tesla's. But basically, Apple's job, and Tim Cook has said this himself, he's like, Apple's goal is not to sell the best. By the best, I mean at the highest volume. Apple's goal is not quantity, Apple's all about quality. Which is why I think that's where the fundamental difference is between Tesla. Tesla's mindset is we need to sell the most. We need to sell at the highest volume. And those two things tend to go hand in hand typically. It's like you would think that the best seller is typically the best product, but it doesn't always apply in every market, right? Most people would agree that, McDonald's is not the best restaurant on earth, but they may sell at the highest volume. I don't actually know if it's McDonald's. It might be someone else, but it's probably not a restaurant you'd think of when you think this is the best restaurant in the world. So Tim Cook said that in interviews, but it goes way, way back. This is a very long story, and I'm very excited that this tweet was made yesterday. I was actually getting my old gas car smog checked yesterday, unfortunately. And while I was getting the car smog checked, I opened Twitter, and I see Elon tweet out, "Thank you, Tim Cook, for showing me around Apple's beautiful HQ." And I was just like, what? Oh my God. Like, Elon is at Apple right now, like worlds colliding. And this was after that would be one thing. But what made it even more exciting was that, like, the day before, Elon was on a non-stop rampage hate storm about Apple. He was tweeting about going to war with them. He was tagging Tim Cook, asking, what's going on? Why does Apple want to take Twitter off the App Store? And of course, I did that. My last big live stream was covering this, of just like, oh my God, Elon hates Apple. And I mostly sided with Apple on that argument. I think Elon was being overly critical and has dissed on Apple way more than they deserve. I know they're $1 trillion company and it's easy to punch up, but I just genuinely think that both companies would get along very well, but there's a lot of bad blood between them. It stems back to in 2013. There were reports that Apple was interested in buying Tesla for more than what they were worth at the time, a complete buyout. But the alleged contract that Apple wanted was they didn't want to work with Elon. They wanted Elon Musk to step down from Tesla so that they could buy them out. So obviously Elon, who's in charge of Tesla, said no. He wanted to maintain control. And then later, story kind of flipped the other way. In like 2017, 2018, Elon said that Tesla was in a dire time. That was in the middle of the Model 3 production hell, as they call it. And they were struggling to turn a profit. They were losing a ton of money. And Elon was trying to reach out to Tim. Oh, sorry, it's so pixelated. T-Mobile's acting slow today. Maybe I need to close things on this. I don't know why. But yeah, the bit rate is awfully low. Sorry, I'm so pixelated. What could I do? I could turn this off. I don't know if the iMac Pro is doing something in the background. But yeah, T-Mobile's being... And I'll pause this as well. That might help. Okay. Hopefully T-Mobile fixes itself. It's usually... The bit rate is usually not this low. But... Basically, Darren's like, wonder if Tim and Elon can. Oh my God. I hope so at this point. Elon reached out to Apple to discuss a potential buyout, or at least a heavy investment from Apple into Tesla. And Elon claims that Tim Cook did not take the meeting. He refused to even talk to Elon way back in 2017 or 2018, whenever that was. Now, we do have evidence now of Elon misunderstanding things from Apple. So there's a chance that Tim Cook didn't necessarily, intentionally decline the meeting, but maybe he just didn't know how to contact him, or he didn't know. Maybe Tim was just busy at the time. But it was said later in an interview if Elon and Tim had ever spoken, and Tim said no, he'd never talked to Elon before. And of course, Tim Cook has always played the very middle of the road, never being very outspoken. Tim is very calculated in most of his responses and very polite and just very straightforward, just like, well, I've never talked with Elon. I'm tempted to do a skit where we could get both of these characters together. But essentially, I do consider this a big deal, Mike. Elon's trying to... Mike is downplaying it. Sees everyone see they made up and love each other now. The fact that they had a conversation and Elon said it was good, that's miles ahead of where they ever were before, because originally Apple wanted Elon Musk to not be in charge of Tesla, and then Elon tried to reach out to Apple about buying Tesla. They didn't even take the meeting. They didn't even want to talk with him. Elon had said negative things about Steve Jobs in the past, saying that he was very rude and didn't like him. So there's always just been this bad blood. Plus, Apple has poached a lot of Tesla employees over the years and picked up a lot of them. And Elon was very outspoken about that, about how Apple keeps trying to take all of our engineers. And if you're not good enough to work at Tesla, then I guess you go work at Apple. So there's always been this friction. The fact that there's any kind of positive interaction going on right now is amazing and a great step in the right direction, because it means that there's at least a conversation going on. So I just want to applaud, and I just want to thank Tim for not just pulling an Elon and replying to him on Twitter, which is what Elon probably would have done. He was like, I don't like the 30% revenue cut. It shouldn't be 30%. I'm going to go to war with Apple. What's going on with Tim Cook? Does Apple hate free speech? And he was on this rampage attacking Apple. Tim, of course, plays the classy card. Tim doesn't reply to him on Twitter. He probably didn't even send him a big paragraph in Twitter DMs or anything. He just says, let's take a walk. You're at Twitter headquarters right now. You're not too far from Apple. Why don't you head on down to Cupertino? I'll show you around. Let's have a little talk. And basically, Elon posts the video that he's inside Apple HQ, says he had a good conversation with Tim about lots of things, but the most important thing that he highlighted was that Elon misunderstood whatever the notice was from Apple, and Tim Cook reassured him that they never considered removing Twitter from the App Store. That was not even up for consideration. That was not even remotely being discussed. Oh, I disagree with you wholeheartedly, Mike. The fact that the two guys are meeting now and they had a good conversation, that changes a lot. That means that there's a conversation. And Elon took down the tweet about going to war with Apple over 30%. And he has said very little negative things about Apple since meeting with him. So the fact that Tim was in favor of a in-person, let's get together, let's chat, I'll show you around, let's have a conversation about this, and Elon changed his narrative, changed his tune very quickly, I think is a great sign. It changes a lot. It means there's a conversation. If there's no conversations going on, if there's no discussions going on, there's no progress to be made. Now that there's good conversations going on and that there is good things being said about each other. Elon followed Tim Cook. Tim Cook is now following Elon on Twitter. That changed as another form of like public, like, I'm interested in what you have to say. I'm interested in conversation going on. To me, like, this is miles ahead of where we were just a couple days ago, basically. This is how it starts. It's one meeting. That's how it begins. Nothing's going to get done until there are positive, like, respectful conversations going on. And that's what everything starts. Thank you for the super chat, Gabriel. This was better than Endgame. Well, it's definitely been a long time coming of like bad blood between the two companies, and now I feel like they're finally talking. They're finally agreeing on things, and I would love to be a fly on the wall on this conversation. Like, I want to know how that discussion went down, and what did Tim say? Like, how comfortable is Elon now with the 30% revenue cut that he doesn't seem to want to say bad things anymore. Randy says, do you want to make electric toys for the rest of your life, Elon, or do you want to come with me and change the world? Yes, this is exactly what Tim has said. Is Elon suddenly okay with the 30% tax now? He's not fighting it anymore. He seemed to be on a nonstop, like, I hate Apple. Apple's crazy. They have a secret tax on the internet. But after this conversation, he's changed his tune quite a bit. He's genuinely like saying nice things about him and applauding him and following him, and I think that's awesome. I love that there's a conversation going on. Yeah, Tim Cook was following 69 people for a long time on Twitter. Elon was number 70. He was willing to ditch the lucky number 69 follower just for Elon. That's one way to get a meeting with Tim Cook. Yeah, be the richest guy in the world. Hasael says, this is a topic I would have loved a podcast episode on. Petition to have a special edition episode this weekend. I don't have the time to be honest. That's the reason we take a break. And I don't know where Randy's at right now, but Randy's either a father already and hasn't announced it, or about to become a father any day. If you were invited to go to the Apple event, would you go? I don't know about the Apple event. I would have loved to go to the Tesla Semi event, but I don't know. Apple events are mostly virtual now, and all that you really do if you get invited is watch the virtual event at Apple HQ on the big screen. But usually most of these events have a lot of fluff and a lot of recap and a lot of repeating the same things over and over again. So I would much rather do live reaction streams. I find those more enjoyable than going to a big crowded event. I don't think so. Probably not if I was invited, because it's more fun for me to do live reactions. Legion super chatted and says, is cellular version worth it on Apple Watch? Of course, worth is subjective. There's no one size fits all. I personally don't think it is, because I tried it and I found that I had to like intentionally leave my phone behind in order to justify even activating the cellular feature. And I was like, if I'm intentionally leaving my phone behind and paying extra for this, it's not worth it. I got the stainless steel Apple Watch, which already has, all the steel watches have the cellular modems in them anyway, but I just don't have a cell plan activated for it. Mint Mobile doesn't even support it. So I don't think it's worth it, but thank you for the super chat. Michael says, Tim Cook follows very few people, so the fact that he followed Elon is cool. Tim followed Sundar Pichai shortly after the Google partnership for COVID tracing. Interesting. That's fascinating. That's a nice little detail. I didn't know that. But yeah, it's the fact that there's only a few dozen followers and Elon is now one of them, especially knowing how often Elon tweets. Can you guys just can you just visualize Tim Cook seeing all of the crappy memes that Elon tweets out? And he's scrolling through them on Twitter and he's just like, interesting. I've always felt like Tim Cook is like a secret memester. Like he's not as obvious and obnoxious about it. Like Elon is an obvious memester. He tweets out and like screenshots people's memes in his replies and repost them himself. He's not afraid to make bad meme jokes and post crappy, trashy memes. But Tim, I'll never forget what Tim did. When Trump called him Tim Apple, he changed his name on Twitter to Tim Apple. The absolute mad lad was seeing everyone joke. It was like trending on Twitter, Tim Apple, because that's what Trump called him. So he's like, I'm going to change my name. And the same thing, like when he announced the iPad mini, he tweeted out a picture of him holding the iPad mini with the Apple Pencil. This was the iPad mini 5 back in the day. And then later in the week, they announced the new AirPods 2. And he tweeted the same picture of him holding the iPad mini, but they just pasted the AirPods on there because so many people were making memes of Tim holding the iPad and they were like pasting a bunch of random things on there. So I've always felt like Tim is secretly a bit more playful or a bit more memey than we like to admit. And he also, when the new AirPods came out, he changed his profile picture. It was the exact same picture of him smiling, but there were just AirPods in his ears, which is hilarious. I wonder if Elon got to meet Air Force One. How cool is that? I want a collaboration. Can you imagine all these guys working with Elon or talking with Elon? So Apple partnered with Google on the COVID tracking feature, and shortly after that partnership, Tim followed Sundar on Twitter. Now he's had a meeting with Elon. Elon saying nice things about Tim. Saying it was a good conversation and that he cleared up the misunderstanding and that Twitter was never going to be removed from the App Store, which I believe from the beginning. I don't know if you recall that, but back in my last live stream, I was like, I don't think Apple is going to I don't think Apple's against free speech. I don't think that they're going to take down Twitter, especially if they allow Truth Social. It's like you're mad that they brought Trump back to Twitter, but you're okay with Trump's alternative platform where people are saying all kinds of crazy things. You're comfortable with that being on the App Store. It didn't make any sense to me. So I had a feeling Elon was way misunderstanding something or maybe straight up lying about it. I just really would love to see what the notice said. And that's what I was complaining about in my last stream. It's like Elon did not clarify what the notice from Apple said. And I was like, I need to see that email. Did that email just straight up say, we're thinking about removing you from the App Store? Or was it an email that just said, watch it? I was like, what did Apple say to Twitter? Or maybe someone read something from Apple and passed it on to Elon. You know, I think there's a good chance that Elon is surrounded by a lot of people that don't like to disagree with him because he's so, famous and rich and powerful and he owns all these companies. So there's a lot of people that he likely fires for disagreeing with him. And there's probably a lot of people that just intentionally don't disagree with him that are around him all the time because they want to get on his good side. And maybe one of those people in Elon's little board of inner circle went up to him and they said, what, Apple's threatening to take us off the App Store. And Elon was like, what? That's crazy. I'm going to tweet Tim right now. What's going on? And Tim was like, we never said that, bro. It's like, what are you talking about? But of course, Tim was more classy about it. He's like, yeah, why don't you stop on by? Well, why don't I show you some things? Let's talk. Let's have a good talk. And I think that was the right way to go about things because truthfully, there should be more collaboration. There should be more discussions. If not CarPlay brought to Teslas, we should at least be getting Apple Music. That's coming later this month. Apple Music will finally be on Teslas. But if we can't have CarPlay, we could at least get AirPlay. AirPlay on Teslas would be great. Let's see. Gabriel Superchat, is this better than Ukraine and Russia making up? No. Oh my God, Gabriel, don't even joke about that. But that's not a disagreement. That's just one country being incredibly evil and stupid. That's not like back and forth. Let's not talk. Let's not go there. Randy says not a father yet. We're on the baby's time now. Apparently. Okay. Fair enough. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some form of Apple/Twitter partnership. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'm sure they definitely talked about Twitter. That's what kickstarted this whole discussion. Uh, Moran Sorgek. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. I don't know how else to say it. Getting CarPlay on Tesla would be so hype, as if I could afford a Tesla in the next few years. I understand the frustration. I was there for a long time myself, but yeah, I definitely would be in favor of it, especially the new enhanced CarPlay experience. But there's got to be a lot of overlap, right? There's got to be a bunch of employees that have worked at Apple and Tesla, and there's got to be a lot of Apple employees that drive Teslas. And I'm convinced that probably 90% of Tesla employees have iPhones, because they give all kinds of features to the iOS Tesla app way before they give it to the Android app. Elon thinks Apple's a monopoly because he basically doesn't acknowledge that Android phones exist. And he's like, Apple has a 30% tax on the internet. Is like, so what is the Play Store then? I guess that. What do you think this could mean for the future with collaboration between Apple and Tesla? I'm at least hoping for, well, Apple Music is almost a lock-in. Basically, they found a Tesla at the Peterson Automotive Museum that was running beta code, and it had Apple Music built into it. So most people are fairly convinced that Apple Music is coming to Teslas. It's already on internal versions. The biggest one that Elon's talked about that I would love to see is AirPlay. So CarPlay is a bit of a stretch because Tesla has to maintain a lot of control over their display, the speedometer. And I know that the new enhanced CarPlay experience can show your speed and your battery and all that, and your range and all that. But I still feel like the full self-driving visualizations, the blind spot cameras that show up when you use your blinkers in the car, there's a lot of things that would be kind of complicated for enhanced CarPlay to take over. So it would take a lot of refinement and a lot of software optimization. So I understand why that's a lot to ask, but I would love to see AirPlay. That's not that big a stretch. Apple let third parties have access to AirPlay. Like my Roku TV, when I originally bought it, did not have AirPlay. A couple years went by, it got a software update. Now it supports Apple certified AirPlay. So even without the Apple TV, you can screen mirror to a Roku now. And you could easily add that to the Tesla display so that when you're parked, obviously not in motion, you could just stream or screen mirror whatever's on your iPhone or iPad directly onto the Tesla display. That would, similar to my push for Apple supporting dual boot macOS on the iPad, instead of individually adding a bunch of things like I want Tesla Theater to support Apple TV Plus, I want Tesla Theater to support Discovery Plus, I want them to support Paramount Plus, I want them to support Peacock or HBO Max, instead of adding all of these separate things, you could just knock down all of these at once if you said, hey, most people who have Teslas probably have an iPhone or at least a smartphone of some kind. Why don't you just make it easier to cast whatever's on their screen onto that display? That would simplify a lot and also open up a lot of potential. Another one I would love to see is Apple Maps integration, especially if Tim and Elon are following each other on Twitter now. They're talking and they're saying good things about each other. That makes me wonder if you could switch between Google Maps and Apple Maps, kind of like how you can switch between Tidal and Spotify. Tesla's not in favor of having just one streaming option for everything, and they're bringing Apple Music. So they're in favor of like more services and more software support coming to the cars. So if you could switch from Google Maps to Apple Maps, I bet a lot of people would be in favor of that. I know a lot of people personally that have said they would love to get on Apple. And I gotta admit, I thank you guys for the super chat. I'll read those in a second. I know that it's a meme that Apple Maps sucks, and there's a lot of people that are like, oh, Apple Maps doesn't know where to go. I have had, and I know this is anecdotal evidence, but it's my life, and I think everyone should base their buying decisions not based on what other people have told them, but based on what they have experienced. If you can, some people can't always have firsthand experience depending on the product or service. But in the last 15 years of using navigation software in my life, Apple Maps has hardly ever taken me a weird route or a wrong route. Apple Maps has always worked great for me. As long as it's been a feature, I've been using it on iPhones, and it always just works. It's very simple, it's very easy to understand. Never had any issues with Apple Maps. My current car, which is a Tesla, is all powered, the navigation is all powered by Google Maps. And it makes a lot of dumb navigation choices. There were several times where I was meeting up with family members in a nearby town that was, a little bit far away, like an hour away. And it wanted me to like drive through this back alleyway of a grocery store to get to the parking lot. It was so sketchy, and everyone in the car was like, "Where are we going? Like, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry, that's what the car thinks we should do." And I've had friends that have gotten lost using Google Maps or not been able to find my house through Google Maps. And there's a route that we because we live in a pretty rural area, so if we're like going to the movies or going to a grocery store or something, we have to drive to another town, and it's not terribly far away. But typically, whenever I plug in an address in that town, it wants me to take this weird back road to get on the freeway because it claims that it's technically faster. And I've been driving around here for a while. I know it's not technically faster. And it also uses more energy because it's further. But they're like, well, there's technically less stoplights on this route, so it's faster. And I'm like, yeah, but even if you go through more stoplights, like it's still way less distance and you save energy. Every time it tells me to take that route, I ignore it and I get better range. The percentage on the navigation goes up. And I don't even waste that much time. I've tried going the other way, and it's not faster. So, excuse me. I'm very disappointed. Excuse me. With the last 3 months of ownership with my car, the Google Maps has not been very good compared to what I could get with Apple Maps. I see some super chats here. Thank you. I gotta catch up. I wonder about a Tesla App Store as Apple's first try at third-party app stores. I would think Apple could make the argument that they should let third-party app stores if regulation requires multiple. Yeah, in Europe, there's definitely a chance of that. I don't think it's officially been passed yet, but I know that legislation in the EU is definitely a lot less business-friendly and less free market supporting, and they are a lot closer to passing a law that would require side loading. But the nice thing about that is it's just software. It's not the same as like, oh, they gotta add USB-C to the EU. They might as well add it everywhere because now you gotta manufacture a bunch of iPhones with Lightning versus a bunch of iPhones with USB-C. Would the EU iPhone get faster data transfer speeds than the US iPhone? It just gets a little bit weird when it's hardware. When it's just software, that's pretty easy to geofence. And it's just code. You can say, yeah, okay, you can sideload in Europe, but if you're in the US, it just doesn't work. But you pitched me an amazing idea, Nile River. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But I just thought of something you just mentioned. So Tesla's been rumored to launch their own app store for a long time. That's not news. And I saw some insider or something saying that they plan on launching it in the next couple months. So it's been talked about for a long time. It just makes so much sense. Tesla could make easy money off of having their own app store. They have millions of cars on the road, all with pretty decent displays, with decent infotainment processors that can play games. They don't necessarily have to be the most graphic intensive games in the world, but they're way better than any other car can have. All these cars have cellular, they have Wi-Fi connectivity, they have USB ports and Bluetooth that you could connect controllers to. There's so many advantages financially, demand-wise, of adding an app store to Tesla's. But Apple doesn't like, Elon does not like the 30% cut Apple takes. So that makes me wonder, like, maybe you have to sign up for Twitter Blue on your Tesla. And that way Tesla can take 100% of the revenue. And Twitter can take 100% of the revenue. But I guess not everybody on Twitter has a Tesla. They just have to give a Tesla to everybody, I guess. Anyway, Hasael, thank you for the super chat. Imagine tonight the Tesla Semi opens up and the rumored Model 2 rolls out with him driving it. Yes! Oh my god, that's hilarious. Good night! Good evening! Good evening! I'm so excited to unveil the Tesla Semi today. That would be fantastic. You should do a skit trying to emulate that meeting between Elon and Tim. I really should. I can't believe I didn't think of that until after I went live. But I was like, we had a fun live stream talking about Elon and Tim just a couple days ago. Now they've seemed to have made up, at least, and they're holding hands and painting each other's nails, whatever they do. But I was like, I want to go live again so we can all talk about this. But once I went live, I was like, oh man, maybe this would be a good skit. It was Apple's way to get CarPlay and Tesla. I feel like, yeah, that might be, yeah, I guess that would be on Tesla, right? It's not up to Apple. Tesla would have to support CarPlay. But that's definitely been very high on the list of requested features. I understand why they don't rush into it though, because it's very complicated with how many things you can do with the Tesla software. Wouldn't be surprised if Apple just rejected one update and Elon didn't know what it meant and blew it out of proportion. That sounds really believable to me. I would just love to see what the email said. It was like they pushed one update. Maybe it was something like Epic did. They pushed an update where you could sign up for Twitter directly through Twitter's own payment service or something, or without the App Store fee. Like they provided an alternative method of payment that wasn't allowed, and Apple said, "Hey, that's against policy. You can't do that." And Elon was like, "Apple hates free speech. They're trying to take us off the App Store." And Apple was like, "No, no, no." Um, Andrew Hudson says, "Good job. Thank you so much for the super sticker. That's very generous of you." Benjamin GL says, "So I called it. Elon was either just lying for attention or just overreacted to his standard App Store response." I think we both called it. I'm pretty sure you and I agreed on that subject. I was really curious as to why Apple would want to take down Twitter but not take down other free speech platforms that they're comfortable promoting and taking money from on the App Store. But yeah, that was my thought as well. I tend to decide with Apple on that. I don't think the 30% tax is unreasonable. I think that's an industry standard, and considering how successful and safe and comfortable people are spending money on the iOS App Store, Apple deserves a pretty big cut, because it's not easy to make a large successful app store that people are comfortable spending money on. It's not that simple. And people like to think of it as, well, that would have happened anyway. They downplay Apple's accomplishment and say that it's not, you don't deserve that. It should be 10% or 5% or nothing. I don't know what most people are suggesting it be. I never hear I can't see that wide of that many people agreeing on what they think the percentage should be. Everyone just hates on 30%. What should it be? It's like, oh, I don't know, 10, 5, none. I don't see a big universal agreement. But I thought it was very reasonable that after a lot of backlash and a lot of people saying that 30% is too high, Apple decided, okay, if you're a small business, if you make under $1 million a year, it's 15. Okay, they didn't have to do that, but they chose to. So that makes it a lot easier for the smaller developers to get started. Alpha says, Apple Maps really needs to update their satellite maps. The image showing my house is a scene from over 5 years ago. Is Google Maps much newer? I don't know. I looked up several places on Apple Maps, and I was impressed with how detailed it was. Benjamin Super Chatted says, off, great idea. Could you imagine if the new Apple Maps experience benefited from Tesla car data? Imagine if the new city experience was used for the FSD overlay. God, that would be amazing. Yes, I totally agree with you on that. Absolutely. So for those who aren't aware, in certain major cities, the only one I've experienced it in, I think, is San Francisco. When you're using Apple Maps, they have all of this data on like the trees and the bridges and the overpasses and the buildings. So when you're using Apple Maps through a major city, like, oh, the Golden Gate Bridge. I've crossed the Golden Gate Bridge while using Apple Maps. They have like the entire bridge in 3D models rendered in there, and it's red, it's color accurate, and you can see all of the details of it. It's incredibly accurate and really immersive, and you could easily bake that into the full self-driving visualization that Tesla is already building when you're on the beta, labeling the street lines and cars going by. And if you overlaid those Apple Map data with the full self-driving visualization, oh my God, that would look so cool. That would be really immersive. You'd basically have like a metaverse looking, it wouldn't be of like, photoreal data, but it would look like a Pixar version of the real world on the display as the car's driving around. That would be so cool. I would love that. Circuitry says Apple Maps stopped sucking a very long time ago, and it's way better than Google Maps now. Thank you. I'm glad I'm not alone on that. I still know a lot of people that have the blind, like, I haven't even tried it, hatred towards Apple Maps. They're like, I don't even care what anyone else says. Apple Maps sucks because it's Apple Maps. And I know that Apple Maps had like a bumpy start, but I feel like they fixed it and ironed it out within like the first year. But that hatred and that negative stigma surrounding it hasn't gone anywhere. Um, I think what it is I have you guys as a bit of an echo chamber. A lot of you guys that watch my channel are very much Apple fans because I'm an Apple fan and I talk a lot about Apple and I defend them a lot of the time and argue as to why I think they're in the right, despite the fact that I also hate on them a lot. I feel like everyone forgets all the bad things I say, but loves to remember all the nice things I say about Apple, especially if they don't deserve it. But I do think that because I have you guys agreeing a lot with me on what iPhones are good or what iPads are good, it caught me off guard when I did a EV video a couple days ago about why I thought Apple should buy Aptera. And I was kind of doing it from the perspective of why I think it would be good for Aptera and why I think it would be good for Apple. But man, the comments on that video, my God, it's just, it really showed me how little overlap there is between the EV audience and the tech audience I have. Like, so many people there have this like blind, completely baseless hatred towards Apple, and they feel like, and it's like illogical a lot of the time too. You know, some arguments were better than others. Like a lot of people were trying to advocate. Aptera wants to be in favor of right to repair. Apple doesn't like right to repair. And I was like, okay, that doesn't mean that they wouldn't buy a company. And Apple, in my opinion, like Apple should want to get more into right to repair, and buying an Aptera would be a good look for them because they could be like, see, we support it. And Apple has been making design changes in recent history. You know, the pull tabs on the batteries of the MacBooks and the removable back glass on the iPhone 14 series. They're like, they've been making some changes and they've been expanding the self repair program. And of course, the right to repair people are never going to be satisfied. So they're like, well, it's not good enough, or it doesn't let me replace the things I want. And they only really do it for batteries and displays, which isn't good enough. So, okay, I'm not saying Apple is the best brand for right to repair. But my point is, in recent history, they have been making movement on it. They've been trying to get better at it. We can argue all day as to whether or not they're getting good at it, but they are making motions in that direction. So I don't agree with the concept that like they shouldn't buy Aptera because Aptera says they like right to repair and Apple doesn't like right to repair. I'm like, I don't think it's that they don't like it. It's just that they don't prioritize it as much. But they're trying to in more recent generation hardware. But boy, the comments were so ridiculous. People are like, if I got a flat tire on the Aptera, Apple would want me to buy a whole new one, and Apple would have planned obsolescence, and they would slow down the Aptera after 2 years, or they would change the charge port on the Aptera to require a dongle and and they would charge the Aptera via a lightning port. And I was just like, what are you guys talking about? Like, I had no clue that if you just go a little bit outside of the realm of the Apple audience on the Tailosive Tech channel, there's such blind and just so angry, illogical hatred towards this company that sells to billions of people and is the most valuable brand in the world. And so many people are happy and comfortable with going back to Apple products because of their hardware and their software and how streamlined they are and how simple they are. And they provide double the software update support of all of their competitors. You're not going to get 8 years of software support on your Android tablet. You're not going to get 6 or 7 years of software support on your Android phone. But all these people have this belief that Apple wants you to buy a new iPhone every year. And it's like, they really don't. They don't try. I mean, they're not going to say no. What company would say no? But like they're not like slowing down your iPhone after 12 months of use. They slow it down to save your battery, for God's sake. Like, it was ridiculous. Anyway, I just had that on my mind because I was like, maybe I should have posted that video on the tech channel, even though it's kind of EV related. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure where to post it. It was kind of back and forth. The Google Maps in my Y takes me on an unnecessary 1-block detour. Usually have to ignore it. Apple Maps would be nice. I don't know for sure if Apple Maps would fix those features. I'm just saying that all of those weird like routes that my car has taken me on and been like, you should go this back way and drive through this alleyway or this parking lot, and there's clearly a normal way to get to that destination. I never had that with Apple Maps. I never got that impression. Do you think Apple might buy back Twitter? Well, they can't because Twitter's private. So even if Apple wanted to buy them, Elon would have to agree to it, and I don't think they're going to. And Apple doesn't buy big companies like Microsoft or Disney. You know, Disney bought Fox and Lucasfilm, and Meta bought WhatsApp for $20 billion, and Microsoft is trying to buy Activision for $70 billion. There's all these big buyouts going on. Like, the biggest company Apple has bought was Beats. And that was like, when was that? Like 7-8 years ago? For $3 billion. Relative to Apple's cash on hand, it was relatively small compared to what all these other big tech companies do. Apple rarely spends more than a couple $1 billion on a buyout. They like to buy little companies. Like Siri was a buyout. They bought that out, which was a complete waste because Siri sucks. And they bought Dark Sky, which was like a weather app on Android that they just implemented most of the features to the iOS weather app. It didn't really change all that much. So I don't think Apple would buy Twitter, even if it was offered to them for a fraction of the price of what Elon paid. But yeah, I don't think Apple would do it. Let's see. You pronounced it right this time. Good, thank you. I'm good. I'm glad to hear that. Gabriel super chatted. He says switched Apple Maps from Google Maps. A couple months ago and don't regret it. From Google Maps. I see. Good. That's good. I'm glad it's working for you. Nate Tech says the syncing with calendar to maps is convenient. Where if you have the address in your calendar event, it will show in the maps. Another reason why Apple just works. I do like that. That's already working, though. I guess that didn't require Apple and Tesla to collaborate. Makima, thank you for your support for 13 months. Says my girlfriend says that Drew looks like Van Gogh. Really? It's hilarious how many people are just like tagging me on Twitter. Look, a guy with red hair and a beard. That is Drew. And it's like, I mean, there are some people that share structural similarities with my face, but so many people are just like, red hair. That's Drew. That looks like Drew. But thank you for the support. Let's see. I got the M2 iPad Pro 11-inch 512 gig for $55 off from Best Buy from a Black Friday sale on Thanksgiving. $55. Okay. I would have bought the M1, but I'm happy if you're happy, J Money. Not what I would have recommended. Gabriel super chatted, upgraded car stereo with CarPlay, but didn't find out about wireless CarPlay until after the adapters sucked, though. Oh, yeah. See, I was never that interested in that. I didn't want to get, like, aftermarket stuff. I like the native, like, baked-in design. That's why I like my Tesla so much, is because you don't have to buy these extra accessories. It has the charger right there. It has the display right there. It should, for the most part, does everything. Did I see the Neuralink live stream? I actually didn't. I was at Chili's. I was eating dinner at the time. We got a gift card. But I was, I've watched the previous Neuralink streams, and they're clearly recruiting events. They're mostly just to try to get more people to work for them. And I'm not the kind of person they're looking to hire at Neuralink. And I think Neuralink is interesting and it's fascinating, but it's not something that I think is going to creep up on us or change very much in the short term. Like, last few Neuralink events I watched, I was pretty bored for most of it, and the general consensus is we've done this very small, very basic, but mildly interesting thing with an animal, and that means that we can do anything in the near-term future, which is basically Elon's mentality of it. It's classic Elon, over-promising and not really knowing what the boundaries are, or just basically saying yes to every question. Could Neuralink do this? Yeah, of course. Why couldn't it? It could do this. It could do this. It's like, okay, cool. Let me know when it's doing that. But like, it's not really a new thing. It's been around for a couple of years now, and every year it's like, oh, we can monkey. Look at the monkey. It's controlling a cursor on the laptop. Isn't that cool? We're going to cure cancer next year. It's like, it always makes these big jumps. It's like, see, it's just with the Neuralink, we can interpret with the visual cortex what the eye is seeing, and that means we can cure blindness. It's like, okay, that would be really cool if you did it, but let me know when you're doing it. But it's like that's how you get me, a non-software engineer, hardware engineer, excited for it, is when they actually start achieving or accomplishing some things. But when it's just talk about like, oh, look what we've prototyped so far, it just feels like show and tell with the R&D team, which is fine. If you're interested in that, I've got no problem with it. I'm just telling you why I'm not terribly interested in it. I think Neuralink will make a big impact or a big difference in the world over the course of 30, 40 years. But over the course of the next 10 years, I think it's mostly going to be testing, prototyping, and the FDA. That's what they said they're waiting on, is like FDA approval for human trials and stuff. Is always takes way longer than you expect. Anything that involves surgery, anything that involves Elon projects as well, always ends up taking way longer than you think. So I'm sure there's progress being made, but it's nothing that's very game changing to anybody in the near term. It's like in 6 months they think they can get FDA approval, which likely means it's going to be 3 years, and they'll probably test it on a couple people, which is cool for those couple people. But I what I worry about with Neuralink is setting false expectations, especially on people that have very little hope. You know, neurological disorders or vision problems, or people that don't have control over their limbs or different parts of their body. You're going out publicly and stating, and because it's Elon Musk who's accomplished a lot of people believe it, you're stating that you're going to be able to cure all these things and fix all of these things with this technology. And you don't have a concrete timeline on that. So you could be telling someone, I'm going to be able to cure your blindness or help you walk within the next 5 or 10 years, and then it could actually take 30 years, and that person might not even be around for that much longer. Or, you could set a lot of false hope and get people really excited for something you can't deliver. Excuse me. That's what I worry about, is when you're telling people that you can fix these things and you don't know how long it's going to take until you can actually mass produce it or deploy that at scale. I'm glad they're doing it. It's a worthy cause to go after. I just think that the expectations for it are way out of whack. Widespread availability is a decade away for limited use cases. I would argue possibly more than that, but we don't know. We don't know. And they don't know either, so they shouldn't give super concrete timelines like that, in my opinion, where they're like, oh yeah, 6 months we'll put it in humans, and then someone who's struggling with dementia or Alzheimer's is like, wow, I'm going to be cured in the next 3 years. It's like, don't get don't get too pumped. Just try to be realistic, because I would hate it if someone thought that they were going to have a major brain disorder resolved or fixed within the near term, and then it never did. That would suck. Let me catch up here. Gabriel super chatted, upgrade both my brother and mom from iPhone SE2 and low budget Android to iPhone XR. They love it. Good. I hope you got them for a good deal. You can get iPhone XRs for really cheap now. Michael says, I watch EV, but generally just don't comment on videos. Okay, that's fair enough. Most people probably are like that. I don't comment on most of the videos I watch either. So I guess you only get comments when... Most of the time you only make a comment when you have a disagreement or you don't like what someone said. So maybe a lot of people agreed with what I said on the Aptera video, but they just didn't say anything because they're like, yeah, that's a good idea. They hit the like button. And I didn't get like a bunch of dislikes. I got a lot of comments that disagreed with me, but overall the like ratio was like over 90%. So I guess maybe I'm just reading into the comments a little too much. Yeah, sorry. I have my iPhone on a microphone arm, so when I shake the desk, the camera shakes a bit. I don't really have a good way to prevent that from happening. I notice it, I see it happening, but I don't know what to do about it. Let's see. I like both companies, but I don't think they have the same qualities or goals. Something just isn't clicking. I think they have a lot of similar qualities. Sure, I agree with your point, Alpha, about them not having the same goals. Like Apple's goal is to make the best products. Tesla is to make the most EVs. Ultimately, Tesla's goal is to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy. Apple doesn't really align it. It has carbon neutral goals. Like Apple has said that they want their whole company and their entire supply chain to be carbon neutral by 2030, which is only we're coming up on only 7 years away. So I feel like if Apple wants to hit that goal, they're probably going to need to use a lot of Tesla's products, which they already have, by the way. Apple has bought mega packs from Tesla, which are basically just batteries for the grid. And Apple has a lot of solar on their. I think Apple has some solar farms too, powering some of their servers, and they have a bunch of solar on their headquarters. And Tesla does similar things. They put a bunch of solar on their buildings too, and they're all about accelerating the transition to sustainable energy. Apple brags with the Mac Studio about how power efficient their chips are and how many thousands of kilowatt hours their Macs are going to save because of their efficiency. I think they have a lot of overlap. There's a few differences, sure, but I just think that I'm not in favor of Tesla buying Apple or Apple buying Tesla. I've seen some people online suggesting that. First of all, no, like they don't have the money. Like they couldn't physically do it if they wanted it to. The closest thing you could get to that is a merger, but I highly doubt that would happen. It's just not in Tim Cook's interest or Elon's interest really. Um, but like Tesla doesn't have enough cash to buy Apple. Apple doesn't have enough cash to buy Tesla. So that just can't happen. But I do think collaboration makes a lot of sense. Just like how Apple works with Blackmagic on DaVinci Resolve, and Apple, maintains relationships with content creators and sends them products early and stuff. And Apple has partnerships with Nike and the Red Foundation and Hermes. They have got whole Apple watches dedicated to the Hermes brand. So there's cross collaborations. They didn't buy out Hermes. They didn't buy out Nike. Apple also collaborates with Disney a bit. I think Disney CEO Bob Iger I think he's still on the board for Apple, or something like that. Apple and Disney have worked together many times. So I just think that cross collaboration where you have software features supported on both, like Apple Music on Teslas. That's happening, luckily. And my hope in the future is we can get Apple Maps on Teslas. And CarPlay is a bit of a stretch, but that would be cool if they could make it work. AirPlay, at least, though, that's not that big a stretch. That would be fairly easy to add. Hasael says, Apple Maps is definitely superior. Recently took a trip to Atlanta and got to experience for the first time the more detailed city view, and it made the experience more immersive. No, I agree. I'm with you. I love Apple Maps, and it sucks that I can't use it on the car because the problem is, as spotty and as glitchy as Google Maps is, it's much easier for the driving experience if you're just using the onboard navigation system compared to trying to run Apple Maps on my tiny phone screen when I have a big 15-inch display in the car. So I'm not willing to go back to Apple Maps enough that I would not use the Tesla navigation, but obviously, I shouldn't have to choose. It should just be built onto the car. That would be awesome. Let's see. He's worth a meeting when he owns Twitter, but not when he just owns Tesla. I guess so. Yeah, it makes me wonder, like, Tim wasn't willing to talk to him before, but he is willing to talk to him now. Like, what's changed? Is he just become so influential that Tim feels like, well, if I refuse to talk to him, I'm sending a message or I'm making a bigger statement than before, where Tesla was a lot smaller. The market cap of Tesla was much smaller than what it is today in 2017 and 2018. And back then, it was pretty early in the EV ramping space. There weren't that many electric vehicles on the road yet. The Model 3 was not even at scale. And the number of EVs on the road pre-Model 3 was pretty small. Apple probably thought, we're going to make our own car. They've definitely been hiring former Tesla employees, and they were probably in the middle of Project Titan back when Elon made the call, and he was like, I want to talk to Apple about potentially buying Tesla. And Tim Cook got that notification. He got that memo on his desk, and he was like, I'm not even going to entertain the idea because we're working on our own car. We're doing our own thing. But obviously, here we are. It's the end of 2022. Apple doesn't have a car. They don't even have a robotaxi or anything. They didn't buy out anybody. They didn't do really anything in the car space. They've lost countless people on Project Titan. They have people come in and then they leave, and then they come in and then they leave. And there's been like 5 project overheads for Titan, and they still haven't gotten anywhere with it. So maybe this is why I love having a YouTube channel, because I love speculating about this kind of stuff. If I worked for Apple, like so many of you said, would you work for Apple if they... I couldn't do this. I couldn't talk about any of this stuff. But because I make YouTube videos, I can speculate here. I wonder if Tim was comfortable meeting Elon now opposed to before, because Apple's had a shift in strategy when it comes to the Apple Car project with Project Titan. Like, are they now feeling like we're probably not going to make our own car? At best, maybe we'll have a ride-sharing service like Google Waymo or Cruise or Amazon Zoox. Maybe we'll do a limited robotaxi service, but we're not releasing our own dedicated branded car anymore. So we're not really in competition with Tesla like we thought we might have been back in 2017, 2018. I don't know if that sounds logical to you guys. I'd love to hear your theories. Jasmine says, will you ever bring skits to the EV channel? I haven't felt like a good way to integrate them. I don't know. I feel like, to me, the reason I want to do skits on the Apple channel is because the news itself, in my opinion, is a lot less exciting than the EV news. I know that's subjective, and it depends on the person. To some of you, that all EV news is super boring, and any and all Apple news is super exciting. But to me, it's like everything we're talking about with Apple is incredibly incremental, small changes. Like, what will they put a different port on the next phone? Like, it's not really all that like game changing. It's like Apple's gonna be fine as a brand. They're gonna continue to be a $1 trillion company, and the more tech gets into software as a service and online subscriptions, I feel like the field is just getting less and less interesting, because all the tech has kind of peaked and all kind of matured. So all the changes we're looking forward to are kind of bleh. So the skits are like the seasoning. They're like the spice. They're like, this is how we make basic incremental tech upgrades entertaining. And it's not that I don't want EV to be entertaining, but I feel like the EV channel is definitely more informational based, because the tech has not peaked. The tech has not matured. We're in the ramp up phase. We're still a very, very small percentage of people drive EV, but every year there's more. Every year that goes by, it grows a bit faster. And we're in this like S-curve adoption rate where, to me, we're in the state where education and telling people how EVs work and being more informative emphasized is important in the EV space, because most people don't drive EVs. So I don't know if the very small number of people that are watching this live stream that also watch tech and EV, I don't know if you noticed that, but that is intentional on my part to be like, EV is a bit more education, information based. Here's what the news is. Here's what's possible. Here's what companies are doing. Here's why they're doing it. Here's why it makes sense that they're doing it. Because I feel like if you're not informed or educated on the reasoning behind a lot of EV business decisions, you will be disappointed, or you'll find EV information lackluster, because you'll be like, why don't they have more 400-mile range EVs? It's like, well, if you understand why it doesn't make sense to do 400-mile range EVs, and it's okay to have a lower range electric vehicle than your gas vehicle, and it's still more convenient, even if the range isn't as high, because you can charge from home and stuff. Once you're more educated, you understand decisions a lot more, and you realize that you can save money that way. So because that's a growing market, to me, it makes sense to be more educational and informative. Tech isn't really a growing market. Like, there's billions of people that already have smartphones. They kind of know how they work. They know how laptops and tablets work. The big question here, the most educational we get on tech, is, should I buy this? Should I buy the iPad Air, or should I buy the Pro? It's all just like, what do I buy? But you already have an iPad, you already have a phone, you're just wondering what your next phone is going to be. It's not as much like education. Here's how you should charge your phone. It's like, that's not really what the tech channel is. So I feel like the channels are tweaked to fit their audience best. At least that's what I'm going for. I like your lighting. Any tips for good lighting for videos? Oh, Justin, you don't have to lie. I'm just using my iMac Pro as a light, and my window is open. I'm not good at lighting. No, I don't have any good tips. Find something cheap on Amazon with good reviews. That's pretty much my advice for most camera equipment. Point the light at you. Point it so that people can see you. That's a good one. Let's see. Randy says it's a good thing you posted the Aptera video on the EV channel. You don't want an echo chamber of your views. Let them disagree. I'm sure you had other people consider this or change their minds. Yeah, that's an optimistic way of looking at it, I guess. I just feel like it wasn't productive disagreeing. Some of it was, some people were like, the company ethos doesn't quite agree, but most of it wasn't that. Most of it was just blind hatred towards like Apple bad. Apple did bad thing once. That means everything Apple does will be bad, and I hate Apple. And it wasn't like a let's have a discussion. That's what I like to have with these live streams and the tech videos when I make suggestions. It's not that I expect everyone to agree with me, but there's like a healthy way to disagree with someone in an unhealthy way. And that video felt primarily, all the comments were like an unhealthy critical eye of just like, this is stupid. Apple would put a lightning port on the Aptera and make you use a dongle. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's a car. I was like, I don't get it. Sonny Patel says Ron Weasley. I'll never deny that because the fact that I look like Ron Weasley is the reason I'm married to my wife. Long story. Well, it's not that long. Basically, that's how my wife introduced herself. She came up to me and she was like, you look like Ron Weasley. And then we started talking, and then we were friends for a while, and then we dated for a while, and then we got married, and now we're still happily married over 4 years later. So I'm very grateful for Ron Weasley. Thank you, J.K. Rowling, or whoever casted Rupert Grint as Ron Weasley. Thank you for doing that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have met my wife. Okay, Darius Hill super chatted. Can you explain the Pixel 7 tweet from yesterday? Thinking of a second phone. Also thought you were meh on Pixel phones. I'm meh on Android phones as a whole, but if I had to buy an Android phone, it would definitely be the Pixel 7 Pro. That was funny, though, because everyone kind of took it as a joke, or like, I think Randy said it was fake news, and people are like, is Drew's account hacked or something? It genuinely wasn't. I've actually been thinking of, what Android phone would I go with? And there's a lot of design choices they went with on the Pixel 7 that I really like. I like and it's on the Pixel 6 as well, but I like the camera visor approach. I did a video on that a while ago, and you guys, if you remember that video, it was not a joke. I straight up said the iPhone should copy the Pixel 6 camera bump. That's a good camera bump because it has... Obviously, what we all want ultimately is like, wouldn't it be nice if there were just no camera bumps? Yeah, that's too far. We can't wish for that anymore, right? Because the camera bumps are getting so thick. The smartphone companies care so much about camera performance that they're not willing to budge on that. There's just so many sensor advantages, light advantages, image stabilization advantages to having a camera bump. It's just too far a stretch to say they should just get rid of it. I've just assumed that's not possible now. Okay, if we got to have a camera bump on the phone, and there's been talk for a long time now that Apple is going to switch to a... Sorry, the feed is a little choppy. I wonder if something's wrong. Do I need to switch to wired? Let me try switching to wired. I'm going to plug in the cable to my iPhone. See what happens. It didn't really fix it. Sorry. I don't know what's going on with the internet today. It says charging on hold. Interesting. Sorry if it's a little choppy. I don't know if you guys noticed that. But anyway, I genuinely said in that video that if you're going to have a bump on the back, and there's been talk for a long time that Apple is going to add a periscope lens. So there's going to be more lenses and bigger sensors added to the iPhone. But I hate the wobble. Even if you get a case, you can still have a wobble on the iPhone where you set it down on a table or something and it's off-centered and it's floppy. So I was in favor of the camera visor approach because that eliminates the wobble, but you still have your big bump so that you can fit lots of high-tech stabilization, periscope lenses, whatever you need to put in there, you can still have lots of space for it and you don't have to have the wobble. So I was in favor of that. I was never really in love with the whole 3 camera arrangement. I'm looking at it right now as I'm talking to you. I was never really a fan of this approach. For a while, I could justify it and say, well, when I got the 11 Pro, that was the first iPhone I had with the 3 lenses, the stovetop looking design. I was like, well, they need all the lenses to be equal distant from each other to optimize the camera performance. Okay, I understand why they did it. But now they're not equal distant. I think the 11 Pros were slightly off, but now it's even more noticeable on the 13 Pro and 14 Pro. You can see it with the naked eye. Like it's the cameras are not equal distant from each other, and it wobbles a lot. And it's one of the first things people bring up whenever I show them a new iPhone is, oh my god, the camera bump is huge. Everyone's complaining about the camera bump, and I think that the Apple approach of let's do like a raised area and then the lens is another raised area and then the glass sticks out past the ring around the lens, and it's kind of complex. I'm not in love with this camera design. um, so I like the Pixel 7 camera design. I like that it's USB-C, as we talk all the time about, oh boy, I hope the iPhone switches to Type C. I hope the iPhone switches to Type C. I'm like, Pixel's already there. It's been there. And the main reason I was considering it was I was debating for the sake of entertainment, because I think the tech channel is more entertainment focused than it is educational focused. I was debating in my head, and I've been thinking about this for a while, putting my foot down and saying I won't buy another iPhone unless it has USB-C. That's not to say necessarily that I have to buy the iPhone 15 if it has USB-C, but willing to say, like, because I don't think I have all that much influence, but I don't know. Maybe too much power is going to my head. I'm getting crazy. Drew's losing his mind. I'm losing my mind over this freaking continuity camera. It's so jumpy. Why does it look so spotty like that? I don't know. Let me try. It's annoying me. I'm sorry. Let me try disconnecting it real quick and reconnecting it and see what happens. Or pausing it at least. Pause, resume. Is that better? It's hard to tell when it's shaky. Okay, I think it's better. I just needed to pause it. Hopefully that fixed it. Sorry for the shaky cam. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay. We found a way to fix it. But I was debating, like, okay, if the next iPhone still has Lightning, or the thing about too much power going to my head is I felt like the tech community won a little bit, specifically the Tailosive tech community won when they added Stage Manager to the older iPad Pros. I know I keep bringing that up, but I keep thinking about the fact that they decided at DubDub only the M1 can have Stage Manager, and we can't bring that to the older iPads. And I was like, that's not true. You totally can. So I made my case. I showed how easy it was to switch between apps that were still running in the background. They didn't have to relaunch with 4 gigs of RAM. And I was like, if this can run 8 apps at once, then at least the A12Z iPad Pro should get Stage Manager. I'm not saying the A12X has to get it, but at least the A12Z. And we were fighting for that, and those videos performed pretty well. And I was arguing as to why it was such. Ryan West agrees with me. He's like, I felt so vindicated. They finally were like, and the statement Apple made, I think they gave a statement to 9 to 5 Mac or Mac Rumors or something, but they came forward and they were just like, we saw the community express lots of interest in the older iPads getting it. And that was their PR way of saying a lot of people were mad that it was an M1 exclusive. So they did it. They caved and they brought it to the older iPads. So I'm not saying they watched my video and made the change based on that, but I at least pushed a narrative that a lot of people seem to agree with. And if with my channel I can push a narrative that convinces enough people that Apple can see that there is a community interest in it, even if I'm just one guy pushing along a narrative that lots of people agree with. I don't think it was single-handedly me, but if it was like 5% of the community that Apple saw being outspoken about Stage Manager should come. Oh, it's jumping again. Oh my God. Okay. I want to disconnect. If this doesn't fix it, then I'm going to switch to the MacBook webcam. How do I introduce iPhone? FaceTime HD. Okay, there's old MacBook Pro. Sorry, audio listeners who have no clue what's happening. Now it's not even showing up as an option. Darn. Okay. Well, that's annoying. It won't even let me use continuity camera now. What if I open? So we're doing tech support live. If I open, yeah, if I open FaceTime, it doesn't even do anything. Wait, turn off automatic camera selection. Preferences? Sorry. It's never been this bad. On the MacBook, on the iMac Pro a couple times it would get spotty, but maybe something's up with the Wi-Fi. Anyway, if I got like 5% of the community through my channel to be outspoken and Apple saw that, then I'm willing to try to get that movement going and try to convince as many people as possible that USB-C on the iPhone is a good thing. It's not a bad idea. It would improve sales. It would simplify their charging ecosystem and reduce e-waste in the long run. And we shouldn't keep lightning around. Like, I'm willing to push for it really, really hard. So all of that to come back to, I thought of putting my foot down and saying, if Apple doesn't move the iPhone over to Type-C, then I'm switching to Android. And I've intentionally tried to kind of push that narrative in the polls. Like I ran a poll a few months ago or a few weeks ago that basically said, how many of you are going to skip the iPhone 15 if it doesn't get USB-C? I want Apple to see that poll because I know Apple's not going to make that poll. Apple's not going to make a Twitter poll or a YouTube poll and say, how many of you want USB-C? They're never going to publicly do that data. They're going to do like random sampling, but their sample sizes are always going to be much smaller than public YouTube polls. So I was like, let's run a poll and let it be known. I don't know if Apple employees or high executives are going to see those or not. But I don't care. I want that narrative to be pushed. I want it to be known. Look at how many people are not going to buy your next iPhone, Apple, if you don't switch to Type-C. You're like, I'm trying to push the narrative like you're losing business. You're losing out on money by not moving the iPhone to Type-C. And again, I'm not going to say it was just our channel or just our community, but I do want to get the gears turning in their heads. Or at least, if not Apple, then the community's head. If my channel and my videos can help tens of thousands of people get on board with USB-C on the iPhone, then that will indirectly encourage Apple to. So I thought if I do a video saying I'm not buying another iPhone unless it has USB-C, that would increase the likelihood. I'm not saying it's a guarantee. I know I'm relatively small. I'm a peanut compared to Apple. My channel is nothing compared to people like Marquez or Mr. Who's the Boss, or there's so many Tech Alters, another good one. There's so many big channels out there that have much more influence. But if all it takes is Randy says, I'm drunk with power. I really am. It's all gone to my head. It's terrible. But if there's a chance, however small it is, if there's a chance that either Craig or Tim opens the YouTube app or is on Twitter, we know Tim's on Twitter, and they scroll by some headlines and they just happen to see a thumbnail, they don't even watch the video, they just see a headline that says, I'm not buying an iPhone until it has USB-C, that might be all it takes. Just one little that we've heard a lot from the community about switching to Type-C, and we've seen a lot of people express interest in this. Like, if that's all it takes is just one little split second to help convince them, okay, the community really does want this, then I would consider like, okay, I'm gonna switch to Android until Apple switches to Type-C. But the reason I haven't pulled the trigger yet, no, I have not bought a Pixel, is because I'm not entirely convinced I'm willing to do that. Because I don't really love Android all that much. And I love my iPhone, I love iOS, and I'm happy with my Apple Watch, and I like the ecosystem I got going here. Obviously, I'm the Apple sheep. Look at all the boxes behind me. So I'm very happy with where my tech ecosystem is. And I want to make a point. I want to send a message to Apple that you really should do this. And I think it would be entertaining for the channel to see me switch to Android, at least temporarily. To be like, okay, what's Drew's thoughts going to be on this, or how bad is it going to be? So I was like, if I had to switch to Android, I've been talking with I call them the Tailosive Android Council, because in our Discord server, We have an Apple channel and we have a tech channel because there's a lot of people that just want to talk about iPads and iPhones and Apple Watches and stuff, obviously. But there's a bunch of people that want to talk about Android phones and Windows laptops and all that jazz. And that's kind of all they want to talk about. So it's too similar if we just have one channel for all tech discussion. So we have one channel for Apple, one channel for tech, and there's a bunch of regular guys in the tech channel on Discord, and they're kind of perpetually always discussing PCs, Android phones, and that kind of stuff. So I don't talk in there a lot, but I occasionally chime in there to because I don't follow Android phones very closely, as you guys can tell by the video output. I don't talk about Android phones all that much, so I occasionally chime in there. I'm like, "What do you guys think of this?" Or like, and the last time I chimed in there, I was like, "What's your what's the best Android phone you can buy?" Like in the U.S., obviously, the market's very different overseas, but and they were like, honestly, at right now, the Pixel 7 Pro is basically the best deal. Um, there wasn't really a better Android phone that they would recommend that I can remember. I think someone may have said the Z Flip or the Fold, or someone who liked foldables was in there. Yeah, it's like Sunny Patel saying, "I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it." I don't know if I'm strong enough to switch to Android because I'm like, what if I'm wrong? I'm not convinced like it's a 100% confirmed like lock-in thing. I do think that the likelihood of Apple going to Type C on the iPhone is growing, especially as Mark Gurman, Ming-Chi Kuo, and Shrimp Apple Pro, all fairly reputable leakers and analysts, are all saying, yeah, Apple's probably switching to Type C. It's very likely at this point, but maybe it's not till 2024. Maybe it's not till 2025 that they actually switch the US market, or I don't think they will do it. Again, the likelihood is low, but there's a chance that they switch the EU to USB-C, but they keep Lightning in the US, or they go portless in the US. If I commit to not buying an iPhone unless it has Type-C, I could be digging a grave. That might permanently ban me from iOS. So that's a dangerous commitment to stick to. So that's why I haven't made the commitment yet. But I was like, well, if I wanted to put my foot down on it, what phone would I get? And so I've been like mildly paying attention to sales and discounts going on because I don't want to buy like a maxed out. I'm not that interested in like the Pixel Fold or dropping $2,000 or $1,500 on an Android phone. I'm like, well, if it's Android, I should try to save money where I can. And that's one thing I like about the Pixel 7 Pro is it has 120 hertz and it starts under $1,000, and it's still a pretty big display. To get 120 hertz on a big phone from Apple, you have to spend at least $1,100. This one was $1,200 because I got the 256 gig. I wouldn't do that again. I thought the 4K at ProRes would be a bigger deal, and it really isn't. If I could buy that phone again, I would have bought the 128. But so I would try to get a discount. Like I think I could get my old. I know someone with an old Android phone they don't need anymore, and he asked me if I wanted it, and I was like, no, I don't think I want it. But I would trade that in. It wouldn't cover the price of the Pixel 7, but it would reduce the price. Some old Galaxy phone I think I could trade in and help get the price down. Do you think they could just go portless for the iPhone? I don't think they will, but I'm not trying to say there's a 0% chance. That's an issue I've had with people on Twitter recently, is they think that you have to be 100% right or wrong or like there's not just with USB-C, but like I was arguing with someone about the Aptera the other day because they were very convinced that the product would fail because no one would buy it. No one will buy that product. And I was like, I'm not saying Aptera is going to 100% succeed. They are a startup company. They haven't delivered yet. There's a chance they could fail, but it won't be because of lack of demand. I was just emphasizing they have over 30,000 paying pre-orders. There's a huge community of people following them. There's a lot of people that want this product. If they fail, it's going to be because lack of funding or they couldn't get their manufacturing work together. It's not going to be because there weren't people who wanted the product. And he was just like, so you're saying they're going to fail? And I'm like, no, I'm not saying they're going to fail. I'm just saying there's a chance they might fail. But if they do, it won't be for that reason. And And I think people are very like, Apple's definitely, like, I see it in the comments all the time. So should I get the USB? I'm waiting till next year for the USB-C port. And I'm like, well, it could happen, but don't treat it like it's a 100% guarantee. Like, without question, the iPhone 15 will have Type C. There's a grower. Again, the likelihood is growing, but it's not confirmed. There's a chance they could go portless, but I would say that option is dwindling, particularly based on Greg Jaw's comments at the Wall Street Journal. They specifically asked Apple, like, are you guys switching to Type C? And he said, no, that would create a bunch of e-waste, or we'll comply. I guess we'll have to. But he advocated as to why he didn't like that law. And Apple's logic on the public record was that we don't want to switch to USB-C because a lot of people already have Lightning cables and Lightning accessories, and all of those are going to cause e-waste. So if your argument is e-waste is a problem and we don't want to cause e-waste, then going portless is the absolute worst thing you could possibly do for e-waste. Switching to Type-C causes a little bit of e-waste, but not that much, because you could easily ship or sell separately a Lightning to USB-C adapter, and Type-C is not a brand new standard like MagSafe is. USB-C is on a ton of stuff already that Apple is already selling. So telling Apple to use a port on a phone that they're already using on their tablets and laptops is not that big a stretch. Going portless means that basically 80 to 70% of all Lightning cables can't work anymore. Even if you came up with a Lightning to MagSafe adapter, it wouldn't work because most Lightning cables are attached to 5-watt charge bricks, and 5 watts isn't enough to power MagSafe at a charging speed to power the phone. And there's a bunch of Lightning accessories that just wouldn't work portless. But you can easily convert every Lightning cable into a Type-C cable. That's not impossible. That's not hard even to do. Just like how when they dropped the headphone jack, they include an adapter. You could easily include an adapter. Boom. However you charge your last iPhone, you can charge this iPhone. If you charged it via MagSafe, you can still charge it that way. If you charge it via Lightning, just plug in the little adapter and boom. That's the best thing they could do e-waste wise, to abide by the EU law and create the least amount of e-waste. But a lot of people, I think, just have the overly negative view on Apple. If your opinion on Apple is they're an evil, terrible corporation, your prediction is likely they're not going to comply, or they're going to find a loophole and go portless, which I'm pretty sure the law states that that's not how it works. Like, if the device is large enough to accommodate a port, it has to have one. So I don't think the people suggesting that have really read the law, but it fits their narrative of like, Apple is evil, Apple is going to mess it up, Apple's not going to give us what they want. Which, Apple's a business and they do businessy, like, upsell you type things. I don't disagree with that. And Apple wants your money. Of course they do. They're a company. So, but my suggestion is that they're going to find a way to make the USB-C port controversial. So they're going to make the pros have the faster data speed and the non-pros have the slow speed. And then we'll have something to complain about. But even if we're complaining, at least there's a USB-C port on the iPhone. I still consider that an upgrade. But if they went portless, which I don't think they would do, but it's possible, then I would basically be stuck with Android for, I don't know, indefinitely, or until everyone forgets that I made that commitment. So that's why I haven't made the decision. I bet who was it who asked that? Darius probably didn't think I was going to spend that much time on his question. But thank you for the super chat. Randy says you are fake news, or more appropriately, a fake. But I do genuinely think that the Pixel 7 is a good looking phone. I like the camera bump design and it looks clean, and I like the frosted glass, and I like the matte finish on the back. Like, I don't know, it's a good looking phone, and I'd like to try one, but I don't know if I want to commit to a long term use of it, and I don't want to just review an Android phone for 2 weeks like I used to do. That didn't go anywhere. Ethan Dabish super chatted, could you do a full year on Android? Yes. There's no question. It's not like I will physically die if I don't have an iPhone. The question is, how much pain and suffering am I going to put myself through for the sake of 1 or 2 videos? Maybe with long-term ownership experience, I could make 5 or 10 videos off of that subject. But ultimately, I use my iPhone for a lot of things. I record videos on my iPhone. I was using it for continuity camera, but maybe if that's not reliable, I don't need to prioritize it as much. But I make my video thumbnails on my iPhone. I use AirDrop. I use iMessage quite a bit. I love my Apple Watch. That's honestly a big thing that I would really be frustrated by. If I switched to a Pixel, I couldn't have an Apple Watch. That scares me. I like my AirPods as well. And I know you can use AirPods with Android, but it's not the same. The battery checking and the pairing method isn't as easy. So I'm not sold on this idea being a good one. If I was 100% or 99% convinced that the iPhone was going to switch to USB-C, then okay, it would be a lot easier to digest. I'd be like, okay, I'm going to switch to Android and use that until the iPhone switches to Type-C. But I don't know. It's kind of a risk. And the Pixel Watch, from what I've read, is not that great. I haven't heard good things about it, and I don't like the look of it. Pixel Watch kind of sucks. If Apple has a portless phone, would there be enough space for a headphone jack? There's always been enough space. That's not why they removed it. There was, what was his name? Strange Parts, the YouTuber, added the headphone jack back to the iPhone 7. You could always have one, but that wasn't the point. The point was they thought wireless was better. You think they will test out the portless waters with AirPods, the iPad, before they try it with the iPhone? Well, they kind of already have with the Apple Watch. Apple Watch has been portless for like 7 years. I do think they could, but you're right, Ryan. They could easily switch the AirPods to portless, and I don't think that many people would care. I mean, it would be a little annoying for some, but if you're buying AirPods Pro, if you're the type of person to drop $250 on headphones, I would say the likelihood of going up to the likelihood that you have an Apple Watch is a lot higher. So just saying, if you have AirPods Pro, charge it via MagSafe or charge it via the Apple Watch Charge Puck. Yeah, I could see, it's 20-30% of the community is like, what? I use the lightning cable for mine. I don't have a wireless charging slow. It's like, okay, you would probably tick off a bunch of people, but you could just, I don't know. I don't think it would be the end of the world. I don't think it would be a deal breaker for that many. It'd be funny if they charged extra for it. Like, you could get AirPods Pro for $250 portless, but it's $280 if you want it to have a USB-C port on the case or a lightning port, whatever. That would be funny to see the take rate. How many people would buy the cheaper one and be like, I'll just buy a wireless charger to save money on it? That would be interesting. But they've had Apple Watches for years, and they used to have a maintenance port, but they got rid of it on the Series 7, 8, and the Apple Watch Ultra. And I believe the Apple Watch SE2. None of the Apple Watches they're selling right now have a maintenance port either, so they're basically portless. The only way you communicate with them is wirelessly. And the AirPods kind of already are that. I mean, they do let you charge the case via a port, but these are doing everything wirelessly. They charge via little inductive pins that touch the little silver things on the bottom. So there's not like a bunch of data being transmitted. These don't really have a port on them, but there's a lot of tech in them. He's got the H1 chip. They've got microphones. They've got speakers. They've got a trackpad. They've got noise cancellation and all that. They're doing a lot of computational things on this, but there's basically no data port at all. It just sits in the case, but the case is mainly using the port for charging. It's not like transmitting a bunch of data through that case. So when are they adding USB-C to AirPods? Well, in the EU at least, probably before the end of 2024. Hopefully in the next few years. Conductive, not inductive. Thank you, Dylan. Mike says, it's okay, Drew. I'll switch over to Android for you. No, you just got your 14 Pro. Mike says, I didn't know Apple was a business. You should buy the latest phone of Android and Apple and give us your full review of which you think is the best phone with the best features. Oh, I don't have to, Nicholas. It's the iPhone. I can tell you that already. I don't have to buy both. I've tried very nice, very high-end Android phones, and I've tried iPhones, and I can confidently tell you I very much prefer the iPhone. The switching to Android would not be out of, I think Android is better. It would be as a form of protest. A techie, nerdy way of protesting to say, like, Apple, you need to switch to Type-C. Otherwise, you're not getting my money. It's a way because Apple cares about money ultimately. So if I tell them that they're not going to get, if we get a movement going or get a lot of people agreeing that they will get less money if they don't switch to Type C, that increases the likelihood, however small it may be, 0.5%. If we get a bunch of people saying, yeah, I don't want to buy an iPhone unless it's Type C, then that will increase the likelihood of them doing it. So it wouldn't be because I think the Pixel is better. It would be as a form of entertainment for you guys to be like, what? The Apple sheep is on Android now. How bad is it, or how much is he gonna suffer? But no, I don't believe an Android phone is better. Personally, subjective, personal opinion. We all use our phones for different things. If you don't use your phone the way I use my phone, then Android may be better for you. Nate Tech said Lloyd Christmas from Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying there's a chance? Basically, I don't. Only a Sith deals in absolutes, right? Do or do not. There is no try. George Lucas, you were making plot holes since the beginning. Good YouTube title would be Reasons Why I Hate Apple. Yeah, if you wanted to make a video that 8,000 other people have already made. There's tons of hits if you search for Apple Watch Dead Won't Charge. This might be from them going dead too long and being portless. Ton of hits? What are you talking about? I like slow charging my stuff, easier on batteries, and happen overnight when I'm not using them. Yeah, I do too. Like that's why I've said I want the iPhone to go to USB-C, but I wouldn't buy an iPhone just for that reason because I charge wirelessly. But I don't think that means we should go portless. I don't think that's a good idea. I just think that the port on the iPhone is useless as is. It wouldn't be very useless if it was a higher speed Thunderbolt port or even just USB 3 speeds. That would make the port a lot more useful. And I used to be on the page of, well, we're all going portless. Everything's going to be wireless in the future anyway. But AirPower didn't really go where I thought it was going to go. Charging over the air didn't really turn anything into reality. So Apple started bringing back old ports to MacBooks, which no one thought was going to happen. They brought back MagSafe. They brought back the HDMI port, the SD card slot. Once they started bringing back old ports, I was like, okay, I think we're going to have ports. I would like a wireless future, but I just don't think it's going to happen at this point. Or if it is going to happen, it's a lot further off than we thought. Chris Norton says, will Beats headphones have USB-C? They already do, I think. Most Beats headphones that Apple sells are already Type-C, I believe. But good to hear from you, Chris. Apple acts like adding USB-C is going to hurt as if they haven't already. On iPad and Macs, Lightning from 30-pin was a bigger change because nothing had Lightning at the time. Here, USB-C is in most people's homes. I agree. I agree with everything you said. Like, switching to Lightning was a much bigger deal. Even though iPhones and iPads were not selling at the same volume as they are now, Lightning was a brand new port. No one had Lightning. Lots of people have Type-C, including Apple. I would be willing to bet. Well, I'm not a betting man. I'm not actually going to bet, but I would wager like 80% of households have at least one USB-C cable. Like, there's a ton of USB-C cables in existence. If you've bought any somewhat new iPad in the past, 5 years, or any MacBook in the past 6 to 7 years, and MacBooks are very popular, or really any laptop. Most, even cheap laptops charge via Type-C, or someone has a GoPro or an Android phone that charges via Type-C, or I saw someone in the comments saying that the electric shaver they use has Type-C. Type-C cables are around. It's not as big a transition as the Lightning cable was. Let's see. I'm still mad about that. They brought back inferior standards because of idiots who don't understand USB-C. Exactly. Only the newest ones have USB-C. Many of them are either Lightning or micro USB. Only the newest ones. Well, I haven't paid attention to Beats headphones recently, but I remember the last time I looked them up, they had Type-C. Let me try to pronounce this. Ian Andors, thank you for the super chat. Random question. Will the 24-inch M1 iMac... No. I don't know what the next question will be. 16 gigs of RAM be good enough to stream comfortably 1080 60 in good quality or debatable with GeForce Now? Probably, but your debate when using GeForce Now should not be about how much RAM you have or what the chip in the Mac is. That's going to be completely dependent on your internet performance. I I don't think you should be worried about. I mean, I don't use GeForce Now. Does anybody know if GeForce Now requires an insane amount of RAM or something? But from what I know, GeForce Now is just live streaming a video feed to your computer. You don't need really any intensive CPU or GPU performance for that. You need a very good internet connection. You don't need a nice computer. But the 24-inch iMac is not a nice computer, so sorry, I'm not going to recommend that. It's ugly. Just get a Mac Mini and a cheap monitor. That'd be a much better setup. Let's see. Alpha says he's counted 45 USB-C cables in his house. Oh my god. Yeah, my Beats have micro USB. Well, I know they used to, but how new are your Beats, Chris? You can run GeForce Now on an iPad. Well, that doesn't help him much because the 24-inch iMac is basically an iPad, just ugly. I've seen many people stream adequately with Mac Minis. iMac can still probably get the job done. Oh yeah, well, it's the same chip. Let's see. I actually have no USB-A cables anymore. USB-C have spread through my home like an efficient virus. That's great! Gail in Kioma says he's completely eradicated USB-A. That's wonderful. I know very few people that can say the same. There's way too many USB-A cables in my house, unfortunately. I don't know what to do with them. There's certain places, like I think Best Buy will take a certain amount of old cables and recycle them for you, but they don't take that many. And I have like a giant box in my closet that's just stuffed to the brim with old cables I don't need anymore. And I've been trying to find a place that will just take an entire box, but Best Buy only will take a certain amount. Or at least that's what their website said. Have you guys had different experience? Is there a chain store that will just take a bunch of cables? Could you take them to Apple? I would love to go to Apple and just dump all my old cables on them. Let's see. I learned that telling myself I won't buy a phone until they add/remove something is dumb. I used to say I wouldn't get a phone with a notch, but caved because that was years away and needed an upgrade. Yeah. No, I do agree it's probably not a good idea. Although I didn't hate the notch. I was fine with that. Ian Andor says, I meant OBS streaming and playing GeForce Now. Same thing. What's going to impact your OBS live streaming is your internet, not so much your computer. Can the M1 chip run OBS? Yes, but your limiting factor with that, you're doing a very internet-intensive task. I don't know what your speeds are. Did you mention those in the chat? I appreciate the super chat, but I don't see you bringing up anywhere what your internet speed is. Ultimately, you're doing two fairly upload intensive things, live streaming and GeForce Now at the same time. That requires a lot of good upload speed with low latency. So wrong question, basically. Don't be worried about the computer. I don't think you're going to need 16 gigs of RAM to do those two things, but you're going to need very good internet. Best Buy will take them. Cables are us. There's this service called Ridwell. Well, I don't want them to come to my house, but my old PC struggles at graphics. Okay, but I mean, your iMac is not intended for gaming. Let me just be very clear about that. Macs in general are not very well optimized for gaming, but that's more on the developers than it is Apple. It's not that the M1 chip is incapable of gaming. It's just that on Mac OS, there's not very many well-optimized games in the first place. So if you're using GeForce Now, that's going to be heavily upload dependent, and you want to live stream with OBS at the same time. You have Thor says he has 1,000 megabit up, which is good, but I don't know what Ian Andor's upload speed is. That's what you got to tell me. That's gonna, if your upload speed is like less than 50, then don't do this. This is a bad idea. If your thought process is I'll live stream games on my iMac. Wrong product for it, that's for sure. Let's see. I'd love a HomePod with a removable USB-C port for when at home, but Bluetooth if you go to the beach. Yeah, I don't think that's a terrible idea. I think we've been talking about that for a while, a mobile HomePod. Those people are kind of annoying though sometimes, I got to admit. It's occasionally nice if you're just kind of by yourself at a beach, or sometimes we go floating down a river with some friends, like on an inner tube, and they'll have a little Bluetooth speaker. But sometimes people go in public, crowded places and they blast their Bluetooth speakers, and it's very annoying. Mobile home pod. Let's see. Toys R Us is back, speaking of cables. But unfortunately, it was a really small section inside of Macy's. Yikes. I tried GeForce Now on a 2020 Mac Mini with 16 gigs of RAM, and it worked fine with 100 megabit download speed. Well, that's good. But were you live streaming? Ian Andor says 50 megabits upload should be enough. I don't know, man. Doing both at once. GeForce Now is pretty intensive, and live streaming is pretty intensive. It might not be that great. Developers are too lazy to do Macs for games. I don't think it's just laziness. It's just not worth it. It takes time, and time is money, to optimize and provide software updates. And whenever you support an additional platform, you're going to have different sets of bugs that someone else is going to have to troubleshoot. And when the game directors want to make one change, not only are you going to have to make it for the Xbox and the PlayStation and the PC, but you're going to have to make it for the Mac as well, because that runs on a different graphics engine. So it requires excess spending, and I just don't think there's going to be that much. There's not going to be that many people buying games on Mac. Most people buying Macs are buying them because they don't use their computers for that many games. Let's see. Mobile HomePod I would buy. The HomePod I never bought because I already bought Echo Dots. I used to use them, but I haven't used Bluetooth speakers as much anyway. But yeah, the investment has to be worth it. If you're going to spend money on software development and engineers and people to make the game work on Mac, then you need to get enough money to cover that back from the Mac user base. And the Mac user base is just known for not spending that much on games. I know it's not zero. I know it's not nobody. I'm just saying, in general, in the grand scheme of things, most people on Mac are not dropping as much money on games as the people on PC are. It's been a while since you transitioned from Twitch to YouTube streaming. What benefits, downsides have you seen in a year? I'll say I never once entered a Twitch stream, but rarely miss a YouTube one. Definitely the viewership. YouTube's a bigger platform. When I stream to YouTube, there's definitely a lot more people watching, which is good. And also, people seem very bizarrely comfortable super chatting a lot more. On Twitch, it was getting to the point where occasionally people would donate like 5 or 10 bits, but at most I would get, 200, 300 bits. So like it was rare for someone to donate more than $10. Whereas on YouTube, it's for some reason, I don't know why, maybe the concept of super chat is easier to understand. It's more mainstreamed. It's more clean in the chat. The color changes depending on how much you donate. It shows in the super chat menu, it shows your country's currency opposed to having a separate currency like Twitch did. And that translation was just too hard for people to grasp. So for whatever reason, people are very comfortable super chatting a lot on YouTube and regularly. Whereas on Twitch, not that much. Donations were more hesitant. It might be because of just overall viewership. I thought maybe people are more interested in super chatting because it's not necessarily about me reading the message, but it's that everybody watching the live stream sees what you asked. And maybe when one person super chats a decent amount, they know that everybody's going to see them, and that maybe just when there's a more busier live stream, people are more likely to donate more. That could be it. I don't know exactly, but yeah, it's definitely been financially better and better for engagement to just have the YouTube videos and the live streams in the same place. But from a creator standpoint, I still think Twitch is much better in terms of how it's set up. It's very easy to. I don't have to make a title and thumbnail every time I go. When I went live on Twitch, you could just go live. You just pick a title and you hit the go live button. It was easier. I think on Twitch it was easier to integrate a countdown that you could easily cut out after the live stream, whereas YouTube you can't do. YouTube wants you to like schedule the live stream before it begins, which Twitch you didn't really need to do, or there wasn't much of a need to. And I also appreciated the transparency on Twitch of like, when someone donates 100 bits, 1 bit equals 1 penny. The creator got the full $1. So what was sent is what was received. Whereas on YouTube, when you super chat, let's say you're on your iPhone, like Benjamin GL did earlier, and you're watching me on your iPhone and you super chat $10. What the chat sees and what I see is okay, $9.99 or whatever, $10 super chat. But YouTube takes 30% of that donation, and Apple takes another 30% on top of that. So I usually end up, it's not stacked, so it's not that I get like, it's not like they take 60%. It's 30% and then another 30% of what's left. So it ends up being like 55% of that super chat I actually get. The viewer pays more per bit, but I like that system because it's transparent, it's honest. It shows you exactly how much Twitch is taking every time you buy bits. Whereas YouTube doesn't make that very clear or obvious. All it says is get your message highlighted and a portion goes to the YouTuber. It's like people don't know that. People will super chat a lot, but they have no idea how much I got unless I explain to you everything that happened. If you're on desktop, I get more. If you super chat on mobile, I get less. It's not as transparent. It's not as clear. And I also thought that the Twitch Prime idea was genius, and I'm still angry that YouTube hasn't done something like that. Like, you get perks and the creator gets supported if you subscribe to someone with Twitch Prime, which tons of people already have Amazon Prime. So you just link that with your Twitch account and you could support me for free, essentially, if you already have Amazon Prime. So every month I would get $2.50 from everybody that subbed with Twitch Prime, which so many people already do that. So I know that Twitch takes 50% of subs, but I think it changes depending on which subscription you go with. YouTube only takes 30%, but again, they don't make that super clear. But most of my subscriptions on Twitch were not paid. Most, like 90% of people that subbed to me on Twitch were using Twitch Prime. So that was a bunch of money, that $2.50 a month, which translates to over $30 a year, that all of these viewers didn't really have to pay extra for because so many people already have Amazon Prime. So I would love it if like people that had YouTube Premium could support you at no additional charge. I was in favor of telling people like, you could support me at no additional charge, assuming you already have Prime, which so many people did. I thought that was a great system, and a lot of people supported me that way, which I was very grateful for. And you could provide perks and advantages to people that sub to you via Twitch Prime, including something YouTube doesn't support. I don't know if Twitch still does this. I think they got rid of it. But at the time, if you subbed to my Twitch account with Twitch Prime, you didn't get ads on the streams. And I think that's how it should work on YouTube, but they don't want to do that. Does Google take a further cut if you're using YouTube on Android? I don't think so. I think you might actually support me. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that there's not an additional 30% cut on Android. I might be wrong. Thank you for the super chat, Julius. He says, let's try this super chat thing. Thank you. It's very generous of you that you did it. You tried it. What do you think about the rumored Apple-Disney merger addressed by returning Disney CEO? Yeah, I thought that was a very unlikely rumor, and I believe it was I think he came forward later and said that's not happening. That would be insane, though. I think antitrust would have a field day if Apple and Disney merged, but there's no need to. Disney's not in trouble. Disney doesn't need anything that Apple has. Disney's doing great. Disney has a ton of money, and they're crushing it with the streaming game, and they're raising all their prices, and everybody loves Star Wars and Marvel and all the animation stuff Disney owns. So they're not going anywhere. I don't think they need to merge. I don't get ads on live stream, and I'm a YouTube Premium user. Well, that's why. Of course you don't get ads. YouTube, but point was, you didn't have to subscribe to Twitch Turbo to not get ads on my streams. You just had to sub with Twitch Prime, which a lot of people already have. The reason why Twitch removed no ads site-wide but kept the free sub takes a lot of the revenue without ads. Yeah, from what I've heard, Twitch has gotten less competitive, and it's not as good as it used to be. But I don't follow Twitch very closely. I have some friends that stream to Twitch, but actually the The friends I've had that are streaming to Twitch have said they're considering moving to YouTube because of how much better YouTube live streaming is getting. And so again, this is why I like competition. This is why it's a good thing for there to be YouTube competitors, even if you don't necessarily feel like moving. It's just good to have something keep YouTube on its toes and try to get better and improve. And I think that Twitch, uh, being a fairly competitive live streaming site that a lot of people were aware of, encouraged YouTube to try harder. And now they've implemented a lot of good things. So I'm very grateful for it. Um, no, YouTube still has ads even if you are a member. So if you sign up for Tailosive Tech Plus or Tailosive Tech Pro, there's still ads on the channel. I wanted that to be a feature where if you supported me directly, which was a lot cheaper than YouTube Premium, you wouldn't have ads on the videos. I think that would be cool, but they don't want to go for that. Um, Twitch has changed their donation from the currency they were using to a ripoff of YouTube Super Chats, which proved that YouTube had a better idea with Super Chats than Twitch originally did. I didn't hear about that, but that's funny. They were like, yeah, this is working better. Um, let's see. Chesman says, I love that whole Tailosive network is on one app. Video streams and podcasts makes everything easier to access. Yeah, we've discovered that as well. It's very complicated to get people to move platforms. And some people think that you need to be diversified and be on as many platforms as possible. But ultimately, I think making sure that the vast majority of your content is easy to access and already in an app that most people use. That's why we don't have a website either. I used to have one. We've gone through several renditions of it. In the old days, we're like, we have a website where you can watch our stuff or you can learn about Tailosive, but it's like people don't want to go to your website. Like people are going to be in the YouTube app. If you want people to watch your stuff or listen to you, you just got to put it where people are already at. They don't want to download a different app. They don't want to make a different account. They don't want to make a password. They don't have to use a different email address. That's just adds to the complexity. You kind of have to pick a team, and we're picking the YouTube team basically. And there was just a lot more of my viewers, obviously, that they discovered me on YouTube. No one really discovered me on Twitch. I never saw a single comment or viewer say, I found your stream on Twitch, and that's how I started watching you. Let's see. You only get one free sub with Twitch. Well, that's one more than you get with YouTube. I don't think YouTube Premium gives you a free sub. Let's see. YouTube is a way better platform in general. Like you could be found on YouTube through vids and shorts. Huge potential at shorts, but at Twitch at the newest games, nah. Yeah, I've seen other people mention that as well. Discovery is a big issue. Thank you, Alvin Brock, for 26 months of Tailosive Tech Plus. That's generous. Yeah, I heard that. My friends said that Discovery was really good on Mixer. They were excited about Mixer when Microsoft had that going, and they were pretty happy about it. But then Mixer shut down, so they had to go back to Twitch. The Tailosive app that was going to be made, yeah, it turned out to be far more complicated and way more intricate than we thought, and not that much better than just using the regular YouTube app. So, wasn't really my idea. It was just some viewers of the channel came to me and said, "Hey, we could make a Tailosive app if you want." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool, go for it." And they started working on it, and things that we thought were going to be easy did not end up being easy. And then it was this big battle of, okay, we have to make our own website that hosts all the videos, and I got to upload things to YouTube and upload them to the app, and then we have to have this whole billing process of. It was like all of this stuff to basically just emulate what YouTube is already doing. So yeah, it was interesting. It was kind of a fun creative challenge, but ultimately it just didn't make sense. I found you first on YouTube because you were the only one that had the answers to the Apple related questions that I had. Then a month later, I started watching you on Twitch. Interesting. Okay, pretty quick. Do any of the Pixel exclusive features intrigue you at all? Call screening, now playing. Ooh, good question, Darius. I recall using back when I reviewed the Pixel. I think I used the call screening feature once, but not really. Nothing that compelling. I mean, I'm kind of like we're talking about YouTube here and all the cool things YouTube does. I use Google services a lot. Like we use Google Sheets for our finance tracking stuff. I use Google Drive for sharing photos and videos. Not photos, mostly videos with the podcasting guys. I pay for, yeah, just like Alvin Brock. I pay for YouTube Premium, and I'm just like I'm heavily, and I watch YouTube more than any other service, right? Like if it weren't for Spotify, I get Spotify for free through my brother-in-law, but if it weren't for that, I would use YouTube Music. So like I'm using Google Maps in my car. Thanks, Elon. Like I'm using all these Google services, so I do have the impression of like if I were to leave Apple, I don't think I could leave the MacBook though. I don't think there's a solution to that. Like there's no PC that I would be happy to switch to that would. I just use my MacBook so much for work between the microphones and the video editing performance. Like I looked around at PCs and I couldn't find anything that would compete with this. I was like, okay, it would be kind of funny for a video to be like, I left Apple, or it'd be kind of interesting to be like, wow, the Apple sheep is outside the ecosystem. It would be kind of interesting for a couple videos, but after a while, that would just slow me down to not have Final Cut, to not have the M1 Max chip, to not have the battery life, or the. It would just be a bunch of money I would spend on weaker hardware. So for my use case, I don't think I could leave the MacBook. But if I wanted to leave the iPhone for a Pixel or an Android, it would make the most amount of sense to go with the Google made phone, because I feel like I'm already using so many Google services, and that was always the biggest annoyance I've discovered whenever I tested a Samsung or a OnePlus phone, is that it's always this two hands pulling each other. Here's your Google account, here's your OnePlus account, here's your Samsung account, here's the Galaxy Store, here's the Play Store, and it's this bloatware. And I was like, I would prefer it if I could just have one account for everything. So people have asked me, like, would there ever be a future where you think someone could compete with the Apple ecosystem? My answer has always been Google is the closest. They suck at the execution. They don't really deliver on actually compelling hardware a lot of the time. I think the Pixel phones are getting pretty good, but when it comes to like the watches or the Chromebooks or the tablets, they always botch the execution, but they are best positioned to rival the Apple ecosystem because they're making their own silicon now. They own Android, so they just have one account for Android, the Play Store, everything. You don't have to rely on Samsung or OnePlus or someone else to step in to do other first party apps. Do you want to use stock Android? Do you want to use the manufacturer's apps? I don't like that mesh experience hybrid feeling where you're having to constantly remind two companies who's using the phone. So I was like, they've got watches, they've got laptops, they've got phones, they've got tablets. A lot of them suck, but they got them. So Google is really, in my opinion, only, it couldn't happen overnight, but they're only like 3 or 4 years away with like really good leadership and really high investment in hardware and software services. Like if they got more into the pro field, if you wanted to tempt me away from Apple, you would go the video field. Like make a, which I feel like they should. Google owns YouTube, right? And YouTube is becoming this increasingly bigger platform, over 2.5 billion monthly active users. So many people making YouTube videos now. I feel like Google should lean into, let's make our own video editing software. Let's make hardware that can edit those videos really well. So if you wanted to create a competitive alternative ecosystem to Apple, Google is the closest. I think they could do it the easiest, more so than Samsung or OnePlus could. Samsung just relies too much on third-party software. But Chrome OS is too limited, as is Wear OS. And their silicon's not that great. That the G1 and G2 chips are not very good compared to Apple's chips. So again, it's all on the execution. But if I was to move away from my iPhone, I would want to resemble the first party one company in control of the ecosystem as much as possible. And I think that the Pixel would be the best way to do that, because that's what I guess would tempt me the most. Is like I use the YouTube app all the time. I use Creator Studio all the time, and I use Gmail a lot. So I even used, back in the day when they offered unlimited photos, I used Google Photos a lot. So I was like, if I switched to a Pixel, I could unbox the phone, sign into my Gmail, and boom, it already has all of these apps. It already has all these services ready to go. I don't have to go download all these different things. Although I would be stuck with Google Maps, which I don't like. But like I just feel like it's not as big a switch to me. Kind of like how we pitched how the switching the iPhone to USB-C is not that big a deal because other Apple products are already using USB-C. I'm like, me switching to a Google phone would probably be the easiest transition because I'm already using a bunch of Google services. I'm not using a bunch of OnePlus or Samsung services. Um, Basically none. But I do use Google Home. We have Google speakers in the house, at least 3 that are plugged in. So yeah, like I'm using the Google Assistant regularly. I have YouTube all the time. I pay for premium, so it's like I'm already kind of in the Google ecosystem, and it's my job. I make YouTube videos. I get paid by Google, and I have a Google AdSense account that handles all that, and they send me tax documents and stuff. So I'm like, if I could simplify my ecosystem, I guess, and just do everything with one brand, that would be kind of nice. But I don't think it would. I don't think I would be happier. Michael Burkhardt says, very thankful for the app. Ethan, the iOS dev, is one of my closest friends now, and the Tailosive app is the reason I met him. Oh, that's great. That's great. I'm glad you knew him. Yeah, I've always had good conversations with Ethan. I was very grateful for all the work he did, and he's a very talented software engineer. Who's just wasn't his fault it didn't work out. It was just the overall what the channel needed and where audiences were willing to go, as well as just how complicated we discovered how how complex it was to make an entire separate video streaming app. I hate that you cannot create a YouTube account without a Gmail account. My iCloud email is my primary one, and I had to create a Gmail just to use YouTube. I know it used to not be that way. In fact, the first Tailosive channel I made did not have a Gmail attached to it, but Google introduces the Google YouTube phone. That would be kind of funny. Marquez, that should be like his dream phone, right? Shouldn't Marquez is so big and like known with YouTube, and he's a fan of Google. Shouldn't they just collab with him and just be like, make Marquez's dream phone? Just get the Google hardware team, talk to Marquez, YouTube phone. Boom. Make it happen. Thoughts on Apple Watch Ultra? I don't know how to answer this. Thoughts. Okay, I'm thinking Apple Watch Ultra. Good for people who want a big battery life and go hiking and swimming a lot. Not me, but it's a good option to have. So what you're saying is Google knows everything you do at every day in every room. Correct. And you as well. If you're watching me right now, it's because you have a Google service and a Google account, which means they know everything about you. Last I checked, it was Elon who made up the story about Apple banning Twitter, so perhaps the proper title would be Elon Makes Peace with Cook. No, I very intentionally chose that title because Tim Cook is the one who set the record straight. They had the meeting at Apple HQ. Elon doesn't just get to walk into Apple HQ. You got to know somebody. It's invite only, Apple HQ. So Elon went nuts, and I don't know if he made up the story that implies a very different intent, but he was misinformed either by his staff or misread the email. I'm guessing that he was misinformed by a staff member that thought or misinterpreted a certain notice from Apple and just told him that because he was clearly very angry and ready to go to war with Apple. But Tim Cook was like, nope, why don't you come on over? Well, let's take a walk. And he showed him around the headquarters. Elon was very happy to talk with him and said he had a good conversation with him. And they discussed many things, including the state of Twitter. And Tim Cook reassured him that was never the intention. So to me, that was Tim Cook's doing. Tim Cook made peace with Elon. Elon made war. Elon was angry. Elon came forward and was like, what's wrong with you, Tim? Why are you like this? Why do you hate free speech? Tim Cook set the record straight. So I would argue that Tim is the one who made peace. Sunny says, I've observed that sometimes people have difficulty to switching to a new platform/ecosystem, Windows to Mac and vice versa, because they try to make their Mac into Windows machines. Example, apps on desktop. Everyone has their own uses for their ecosystem that works best for them, and different products ecosystems cater better to their needs. I agree wholeheartedly with that because we all use computers and phones differently, there are certain tools that make more sense depending on the job. If you're trying to cut up lumber, then you're gonna want an axe or a chainsaw or a saw. But if you're trying to drill screws into a roof, then it's better to use a power drill. It's different tools for different jobs. So to act like a power drill is always the best tool, no matter the task, would be ridiculous. In the same way that I agree, always assuming the iPhone is going to be the best phone in every circumstance is not entirely true. I happen to think that for most people, the iPhone is good enough or the best solution, the most intuitive and the most easy to understand, and has the best overall hardware with the silicon and the how many years of support you get out of it. Although I've thought about doing a video on this, I don't actually think, based on the side-by-side comparisons I've seen on Twitter and on YouTube, I don't think the iPhone has the best camera. Some people like to make that claim that are Apple sheep. But I've just seen so many comparisons, and usually the iPhone's pretty weak. And I've taken a lot of pictures with my own iPhone and been like, that's not great. That's not very good. Even the 14 Pro, when I reviewed that, I was not very impressed with it. It's fine. It's good enough. It's not like so bad that I don't think buying an iPhone is worth it. But if you just want to ask me what camera is the best on a phone, I don't think it's an iPhone. I don't know exactly what it is. I would have to consult the Tailosive Android Council in our Discord, because those guys love talking about camera quality and photo performance and comparing side-by-side details and stuff. But that's not really my thing. I just don't think it matters all that much. But I'm okay with that. Like, I think the 14 Pro Max is the best phone you can buy, but I agree that it doesn't have the best camera. Maybe the best video performance, but most people take pictures. Most people take more pictures than video. I'm one of the rare guys that probably takes more videos than pictures, but that's because of my very unique and specific job placement, which most people don't have. Generally, people are impatient, so switching ecosystems takes too much to learn. Yeah, and I don't blame them. Like the whole reason smartphones are popular is because a lot of companies, but specifically Apple, made them very easy to understand, because people don't want to take the time to learn how to set up things or set up or complicated systems. Or Apple from the beginning, even before the smartphone, was all about making tech approachable and easy to understand to the everyday person, because most people don't want to designate a bunch of time to figuring out how products work. That's why we'll pay extra for a product that is easier, simpler to understand. It's not because everyone's lazy. It's just they don't either have the time, or maybe lazy is not the right word, but that's how you make something approachable. If we didn't have that mentality towards things, then computers wouldn't have mice. You just have a keyboard and you'd enter a bunch of terminal commands into them. That's what they used to be, until Apple bought Xerox and was like, hey, we can make using a computer a lot more intuitive and user-friendly if we switch to this keyboard and mouse type user interface. But that's another thing that I was kind of tempted by when I said the tweet about the Pixel 7, was like, I've seen pictures and videos from the Pixel and they look pretty good. It was like, there's been just many situations in the past year or so of using my iPhone where I take a picture with friends or family and then I show it to my wife and she's just like, ew, why did it do that? Or why does this picture look like this? And I'm like, I don't know, I guess we tapped it wrong, or something's up with it. And I think the computational photography of the Pixel has always been great. I've complained about the hardware many times over the years, but the photo quality has always been the flagship best thing the Pixel had going for it. Was the pictures look pretty dang good. Video, different story. Battery life, performance, display, everything else is a different story. But the camera has always been their biggest emphasis. And there's been some situations where I'm like, well, if I had a Pixel, maybe this picture would have came out better. Sorry, am I losing my Apple sheep card now? Am I no longer an Apple sheep if I say that? OnePlus provides services. They provide something. I don't know. I still get emails because I signed into a OnePlus phone once where they're like, hey, your OnePlus account hasn't been very active lately. And OnePlus has their own store that they put on their phones and stuff. I don't know what services they provide, but yeah, they still like to email me about things. Hasael says Sam is getting rid of iUpdate and rebranding his channel to Apple Track. I think it's the logical move moving forward. Any thoughts, and have you ever considered rebranding Tailosive or a new logo? Wow. Sorry, I missed that. I didn't realize Sam was rebranding. That's a big deal. That's cool. He's rebranded, I think, already. He used to be called iUpdate OS, I think. I don't know if he had a name before that, but when I first met Sam, he was going by iUpdate OS, and then he decided that was too complicated, so now he's iUpdate. But interesting. No, I know the Apple Track site has gone pretty well for him, so I guess that makes sense to kind of unify the website because he's more into the news stuff with his site, and Apple also has moved away from the I branding. So the I Carly, I Justine, I update, that type of thing, I guess, is kind of dated. So it makes sense to go with Apple Track. You do kind of back yourself into a corner a little bit, though, because it means that you're explicitly stating this is an Apple channel. So that kind of prevents you from talking about other subjects, but I don't think Sam was doing that anyway. I like to I mostly talk about Apple, obviously, but I like not having Apple branded in the name because it lets me go off topic when I want to, which is not always, but I enjoyed doing that metaverse video. Like the metaverse is stupid. If I was at Apple, if my channel was obviously the obvious, Sales says, wait a minute, was iCarly an Apple parody? But like if the obvious other branding I could have gone with, I could have called this the Apple Sheep. That could have been a channel name. A lot of the time I refer to myself as the Apple Sheep. Basically every video I say, this is your Apple Sheep here. And I'll put it in the title, Apple Sheep Rants on such and such. So I could have just called this channel the Apple Sheep. But if I'm the Apple Sheep and then I start talking about the metaverse, or now I want to talk about Twitter, or now I want to talk about Mint Mobile or Starlink or T-Mobile, or it doesn't really fit with the branding if we go outside of Apple. And while I don't think this will happen, I didn't want to brand myself as a Apple channel because I do still acknowledge the likelihood, however small it may be, that someone could compete with Apple. Someone could make an alternative ecosystem that maybe one day is better, and then I might switch to that ecosystem. I don't think that's likely to happen. I think it's pretty likely that Apple's going to remain the best in terms of what works for me in video performing and live streaming and the iMessage and AirDrop and everything. I still think that Apple's going to probably have the best ecosystem, likely for the rest of my life, likely until I'm dead, and then some. But if there's a chance that Google stepped it up and Pixel made something, then I probably wouldn't brand myself an Apple sheep at that point. If I, like we talked about, I'm toying with the concept of protesting the Lightning iPhone or protesting the portless iPhone and switching to the Pixel. Should I really be the Apple channel if I'm using a Pixel phone for an extended period of time and that kind of thing? I don't know. Maybe people don't mind that, but I just preferred having my own unique name because I know it's uniquely me. When you search Tailosive, you're just going to get me. If you search Apple Sheep, you probably get me, but you might get someone else if there's more and more channels. But we had everything Apple Pro. He retired, I guess, and now we're going to have Apple Track. I'm in favor of them doing what they want. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm just explaining as to why I don't do it. And also having a specific brand name like Tailosive encourages the concept of there's more than one channel under that branding. So earlier you were asking if I've had thoughts of rebranding. No, I've come close, not very close. I've toyed with the idea in the future of like, will I ever get to a point where like I don't really care what the audience thinks, to the point where, for simplifying content production in the future, maybe the closest thing I would come to like rebranding would be, I wasn't thinking of calling the channel Apple Sheep or anything. I was thinking of rebranding it to just my name, because I was like, there's not that many people that just come up with a unique original name for the YouTube channel. It's like you have John Morrison, you have MQBHD, but his channel is even his name now. It's just Marquez Brownlee. It doesn't say MQBHD. And you have I'm sorry, I'm blanking. Justine, that's her name. It's just a growing number of people that are just like, just use my name and then I just upload all the videos. Like, who cares? Nikias Molina, that's another one. He used to be Apple Watch. He used to be Apple branded, and then he rebranded to just his name. Um, so I thought maybe it's kind of gimmicky or weird for me to keep saying Tailosive because like anytime I talk to someone, someone's like, "What's Tailosive? What does that mean? That's weird." And it's like it's just this little name I came up with when I was like 6 or 7 years old, and I needed a unique URL username when I first made a YouTube channel, so I knew that no one was going to have Tailosive, so that's the one I picked. Is like, is that a bad reason to keep a name or brand going? Ultimately, I decided no, because I do have ownership of the, my name YouTube channel. I can use that and just decide I'm going to upload all my videos to one place, and if you don't like it, that's fine. You don't need to watch me, and just kind of taking a middle finger approach to the audience and saying like, well, if you don't like the EV videos, just don't watch them. But I'm going to post everything to the same channel. But ultimately, I realized that would be rude to you guys to just tell you all to move to a different place. And also, you're going to have to put up with getting notified or your sub feed being filled with videos you're not interested in. Um, so I realized that was, while it may be easier for me because it is kind of annoying that I have to keep switching between all these channels. Like, oh, wait, that's for the EV channel. Oh, that's for the tech channel. Oh, that's for my personal channel. I'm constantly switching between all these different channels. Like, would I ever abandon the Tailosive concept as a whole? Because, there's been so many Tailosive channels that went nowhere, obviously, and most of it's just tech and EV. And would it simplify my life and the content production a lot if I just had one channel? Yeah, it would. It would make things a lot easier for me, but it would make it a lot more annoying and a lot harder for you guys. And I don't want to take you guys for granted. I was like, Drew, these people that are supporting you, that are watching your content or supporting directly, they enabled you to have a dream job, and this is something that I wanted for many years, and it's still just kind of surreal that this is possible, that I can just like go live or make videos and people watch them, and that's my full-time job. And I shouldn't just disrespect that or say, who cares what you guys think, I'm just going to do what I want. So I was like, ultimately, no, that doesn't make sense. So that was a while ago. I didn't even really get that far with the concept. I was just like, maybe it would be easier if we put everything on one channel, and if you didn't like it, then whatever. Because part of my logic was like, well, a lot of the people watching my videos aren't even subscribed, and YouTube is making it like harder and harder to get to the subscriptions feed. Most people are just watching videos that show up in the recommended now. At least that's what a lot of my viewership is just people that stumble upon my channel. And I'm like, well, I'm so worried about the sub feed being filled with content people don't like. But once I realized how different the tech and EV channel audiences are, especially what reaffirmed my decision to not abandon Tailosive was definitely like not my last, but a couple days ago, I posted the EV video about why Apple should buy Aptera. And I was like, wow, you guys are so different. Like, the EV audience is so drastically different from the tech audience. And it reminded me that like there's not that much overlap between these two. So I'm probably better off, and I won't make as many people angry if I just let the channels do their thing, let them be separate, and it also keeps the podcasting a lot simpler. We have the Tailosive Tech podcast and the Tailosive EV podcast. What would happen to those if I was abandoning the whole Tailosive concept? We'd have to rebrand the podcast as something else. I don't know what we would call it, but I don't know. It just seems like too much unnecessary rebranding. And something my dad said, because in the very early days we had a different Tailosive logo. It wasn't the T that we have today. It was the A for some reason. My friend Ross was making a texture pack for Minecraft, and he wanted to put in the Halo energy sword, but like make it 8-bit and low res. So he made this A that was kind of cool looking. So I was like, I'm going to implement that into the Tailosive logo. So it's like kind of like how Samsung has a different looking A. It's like the recognizable. But then I realized that doesn't make sense because you don't say the Tailosive A. Tailosive starts with a T, right? So like, why was the A all different opposed to just the T being unique and separate? So I was like, well, the channel has just barely gotten off the ground when we decided to redesign it. The Randall Scandal Podcast. That's a great name. I love that. Can Randy please make the Randall Scandal Podcast? That's amazing. What a great name. ARM Podcast. Oh, we need someone that starts with a name S so we could do ASMR. Andrew, Scott, Randy, and Mike. It's a silent A, Taylor. So many terrible ideas. But yeah, I think that once we redesigned the T, I had a couple different concepts. I was actually drawing them on the iPad Pro, the very first one with the Apple Pencil, and I was coming up with all these different designs of the letter T, and I wanted to know what people thought. I was showing them to my friends and my family members, and I was like, "What do you think of this one? That the T that we still have today?" And what my dad said to me, who I love and am very close with, that stood out to me that I still remember to this day when I showed it to him was I had like three different mock-ups of the logo, and I was like, so I'm thinking of changing the Tailosive logo. Which one do you think makes the most sense? And he told me, like, none of those really matter. Like, what matters is that you stay consistent with it. He was like, the logo is something you don't need to obsess over with your brand, because what makes a logo or a brand iconic and recognizable is consistency. What makes a logo memorable is when it doesn't change, when it just sticks to what it is and it doesn't fluctuate. So he's like, okay, you want to change your logo, that's fine. Just don't change it again. That was that was the big thing that stood out to me. It was like, he's right. He's like, think of the Disney logo. The Disney logo is 3 circles. Or think of something like the Apple logo. It's an apple. They don't redesign it very much. They've basically had the same logo for like 40 years. They actually didn't start with that logo. It was like this Isaac Newton sitting, was it Newton? Sitting by the tree? And it had this like little flag over it that said Apple Computers. That was the original. The Apple logo looks nothing like, it was weird. But once they got that official, clean, basic, minimal Apple logo, they stuck with it. And now everybody recognizes it. And that's what stood out to me. Same thing with the Tesla logo. They've had basically the same logo since the Roadster. They've simplified it a little bit, but the basic T hasn't really changed. I'm pointing to the Tesla flag right next to me. Here it is. This logo. You know it when you see it. The Tesla T. And the Tailosive T I tried to make as different as possible from the Tesla logo, because I didn't want people... I knew I wanted to have a unique, different looking shape for the first letter of the word. So I knew it was going to be a T, but I wanted it to be as separate as possible from the Tesla T. And other than the fact that it is the letter T, it couldn't be more different. The Tesla logo has lots of curves. The Tailosive T has no curves. The Tesla logo has 2 main parts. The Tailosive logo has 5. They're pretty separate. The Tesla logo ends with 1 point. The Tailosive logo ends with 2. So ultimately, what my dad said to me stuck with me, which was like, once you pick a new one, keep it. Just leave it there. And there were some times where people would approach me with different logo designs or concepts, and I like that there's been different styles over the years, different renditions of the Tailosive T, but it all pretty much still retains that original design. So that stuck with me, what my dad said, and I'll probably never forget that he said that, which was just like, whatever it is, keep it. Don't change it again. Like, leave it the same. Let's see. Your father is a smart brand. Your logo, smart man. Sorry, your logo is synonymous with the Tailosive branding. Thank you. That was the point. So that's the intention, is just to leave it the same as long as possible. The Tailosive Tech main channel and podcast channel are actually 30% of my viewing habit. Oh, good idea that I watch your regular YouTube channel and your podcast channel compared to your Tesla channel, which I barely watch. It's literally 3% of my YouTube watching habit. Yeah, I know. That's what I've discovered, is there's not much overlap. If you have the 2 T's and bend it a little bit, you could build an A. I could, but there's no point. That's kind of the whole reason we ditched the A design. It's not the logo, it's what you do. True. And I also think that a lot of people probably spend too much time thinking about their branding. Ultimately, it's like, think about the content. Focus more on that, more so than the way it looks. I used to try to refresh all the artwork for the Tailosive network every year, and I realized that a lot of the time I didn't really have anything, so I was just changing it for the sake of changing it. I was like, well, new year, better have a new logo, and I was like, is that really the right way to go about it? And I do plan on doing this for the long haul because I love this job and I love being able to make content and live stream and talk to you guys in the chat where you guys can just ask me whatever you want. Um, so I'm going to be doing this for hopefully decades, trying to come up with a new design or a new rendition of the Tailosive logo every year is going to get old really fast. And it kind of already got old. I was like, okay, how many different ways can we do this? And that's why I decided I wasn't going to redesign it for January 1st of 2022. I did come up with a refresh and a redesign for about the halfway point. So like in the summer, I redesigned everything. So I was like, okay, now it's a once every 18 months thing. And when I did that video, I was like, I've got no idea how I'm going to redesign it again. So it may be another 2 years, 3 years before I update the artwork because I just don't think I need to change it all that much. What did Michael ask? Can't you have YouTube merge multiple channels if you talk to some higher up? Maybe, but I'm not that big. I can't talk to YouTube higher ups. I've tried. They don't answer me. Personal name is a better move, but it'd be a drastic shift. I don't know if it would be better for the algorithm or the viewership. I think if I had one channel that was posting everything, it would probably confuse a lot of the viewers, and that might damage the number of people that are willing to come back, opposed to having dedicated channels to, okay, I subscribe to this channel, I get a lot of Apple news. Okay, I subscribe to this channel, I get a lot of EV news, Tesla news. It's like, I think that's better overall for the revenue. But for me personally, yeah, it would be simpler if I could just post everything. It'd be kind of interesting to have like 2 videos and a live stream going to the same channel every day. I was like, that would be a super active channel. That would be interesting. But I don't think it would be better. Marquez is still MKBHD, but has his photo, which is interesting. I think he'll eventually just be... Really? Does it still say that? He's big enough it won't be negative. Yeah, I don't think it matters when you're his size. But when I search MKBHD... Yeah, it says... No, look. This is what I'm talking about. When you search MKBHD, it's Marquez Brownlee. Like, he has the @MKBHD for his handle, but his channel name is still Marquez. Like, when you see his videos show up in the algorithm, it says Marquez underneath them. It doesn't say MKBHD. That's what I meant. You should join in on the 2022 Apple product tier list trend. Everyone loves tier lists. I'm not very good at them, nor do I watch that many. It's very easy to do the worst and the best. That's what we did on the tech podcast. Worst Apple product, best Apple product. Everything in the middle is kind of, I don't know, technicalities. Yeah, it's not the logo. It's what you do. Hasael says, I'd keep Tailosive if I was you, and that way you can separate Drew from the Apple sheep. That is a good point, which is the one I ultimately decided on, was I don't, like, every time you rebrand, you lose a bunch of people or you confuse a bunch of people. So the best thing you can do is not rebrand very much, is just stay consistent. And I think this is very far off, but I want the idea to be known that it doesn't just have to be me. You know, I'd like to think that Randy is a part of Tailosive, Mike is a part of Tailosive, Nick is a part of Tailosive. You know, there's people that are in the brand, but they're not me. And I'm not planning on retiring anytime soon, but if in the future I got really old, or I decided I didn't want to do YouTube or anything anymore, or I died or whatever, I would kind of appreciate it. I should put this in my will or something. I would kind of appreciate it if someone took over the channel. Like, I feel like it would be sad if when I died, just all Tailosive stopped. There was no more Tailosive content. If I retired or got sick and couldn't work anymore or died, whatever happens. If I'm unable to produce content, I would like it if someone else took over. I don't know who it would be. I'm not saying this is happening or I'm planning on. Again, I want to keep doing this for decades, but if the brand and the logo and the Tailosive as a concept, as a channel can be looked at as a separate thing, and I'm just the host right now, but someone else could run it, someone else could take over it, then I would appreciate that. I would like knowing that even if I wasn't making YouTube videos, there would still be Tailosive content of some kind being produced. Um, Not necessarily like the next person has to have all my opinions, like they all have to agree with everything I ever said. That's not what I'm trying to say, but just someone that's in favor of making entertaining, informative content for different genres. And it doesn't have to be one person that replaces all the channel hosts. It could be one person takes over EV, one person takes over tech, or, something like that. Randy's son, Andrew Michael Nicholas Vasquez. He revealed his name in the chat. The one true, no dying allowed. If you got old, is getting old an option? I mean, like, yeah, I don't know what I mean. We're always getting older. I mean, like, if I got so old that I couldn't make YouTube videos or something. What would be a cool idea for your logos if you take the T logo and do a slight update, adding something cool, Apple Easter eggs for TrueFit? That wouldn't make it simple. I think the best logos are simple, basic ones. You can't like work Easter eggs into a basic, simple. Is there an Easter egg in the Apple logo? They put the bite in it because they thought if it didn't have a bite, it looked too much like a cherry. The current colors of the T Tailosive Tech remind me of PlayStation 2. I think that's good. Time sucks. That's true. But I won't live forever. But it would be kind of cool if Tailosive did. That's I guess the rough idea I was pitching. It was like there was a tech channel I watched growing up. I forget what they were called. It was like Techno Waffle or something. I don't know what I can't remember. But there was a tech channel I really liked that was like entertaining but informative. But he didn't like all of the negative comments he was getting, and he was a Apple focused channel. He was not big. I don't think he ever got more than a couple thousand subscribers. But I enjoyed watching him, but all of the Apple hate got to him. A lot of people were critical of him and didn't like him and made fun of him, and he couldn't take it. He didn't like all the backlash he was getting, so he decided to retire, but he decided to pass the channel off to, like, I think it was like one of the most regular returning viewers. Like it was an audience member that he knew very closely. He knew pretty well, and that person took over the channel. And I didn't keep watching. I didn't really care for the person who took over it, so I wouldn't be shocked if I leave. Obviously I'm the most consistent thing about Tailosive. Everything changes except me. I wouldn't be shocked if someone else took over the channels. A bunch of people would probably stop watching. That's understandable. But if they could find a way to make it their own, find a way to make their own voice, and hopefully I could find someone that I trusted that I thought would be entertaining and interesting to watch. Just keep that legacy going. The idea of Tailosive alive. Audience, what will you have in 100 years, Drew? You guys, I'd have you. Oh, no, there's a good chance that in 100 years, some of us will be dead. Probably me. Bite is an Easter egg. You take your piece off of it, but it will still remain Apple. You take your piece. Well, in that case, there are Easter eggs. Like the Tailosive T intentionally had 5 sections because there were 5 YouTube channels that I was working on at the time. 5 primary ones. And it also, a lot of people said that it looks like a sheep's head. It looks like a ram, a little bit like a cyber sheep or something. And that was also intentional. It was like, I'm the Apple sheep. So the logo kind of looks like a sheep's head. There's your Easter eggs. There you go. I already know F tier is going to be 24-inch iMac. No, that came out last year. F tier is iPad 10, obviously. In 100 years, will be ran by Randy's son, the Android sheep. What's crazy to think is in 100 years, Randy's son would be 100 years old. So he would be pretty old to be taking over the channel. Yes, Marngel, I'm still going. Maybe Tim Cook will take over. Yes, Tim Cook can have my channel. That's fine. Um, Once you talked about a crazy far out concept of an AI hypothetically taking over your channel eventually, maybe. Oh yeah, yeah, I did talk about that. I wonder if that'll be possible in my lifetime. I feel like at the rate of deep fakes and AI training, I feel like we're on that path. Like, hopefully, by the time I die, which I would like to be late, I'd like to live a long life. Um, AI has gotten so good that it can watch all of my YouTube videos, listen to all my podcasts, and emulate my voice. And the trickiest part about that was like, I'm sure someone to, they could get an AI algorithm to look like me, talk like me, and read the news. But how would the opinions work? Who would be controlling my? Because that's what a lot of my content is. Is like Drew thinks this is good. Drew thinks this is a bad deal or a good deal, and they could make an algorithm that just takes in a bunch of news and then spits out tech videos, and then maybe the revenue, like the AI, whoever develops the AI would take a cut of the ad revenue from the channel, but then the remaining ad revenue could go towards a charity or a foundation, or could go into a trust that my kids could access at certain points of their life. I wouldn't want my kids to be spoiled. I wouldn't just give them all the money all the time, but like money they can access if they achieve certain things. That's usually how a trust works. um, and you don't give it to them all at once. You like spread it out over the course of a long time, and it could like perpetually get higher as they get older, so that you don't give your kid a bunch of money when they're 18. um, you assume they become more mature and stuff. Like, I don't know, that'd be an interesting idea. When initially starting the Tailosive network, did you feel another channel was going to explode instead of the tech one? Yeah, I thought it would be gaming. When I first started doing YouTube, um, I was just making little comedy skits or action scenes. It was like I wanted to be a filmmaker. I wanted to make movies and write scripts and do short films. And I was doing that for several years and no one watched them. And I understand why they weren't very good. At the time, I thought they were good, but in hindsight, I was like, what was I thinking? Who was going to watch that? Why would someone watch that? It was not very sustainable. And then around 2014, start of 2014, I think, is when I realized, like, well, Drew, you're not watching. Are you going on YouTube and watching short films or comedy scenes or action sequences? Are you watching channels that do that? No. What are you watching? It's like you're watching tech videos, you're watching movie reviews, you're watching gaming videos, you're watching music channels, you're watching all those types of, YouTubers that make content about things they like and don't like. I was like, well, Drew, if you want to do well on YouTube, you should probably start making what people are actually looking for. No one's looking for what you're making. You're providing all of this supply, but there's no demand. Where is there demand? That I was watching a lot of tech videos. I was even watching gaming videos and movie reviews, but what I noticed was at the time back in 2014, the biggest channels on YouTube were mostly gaming stuff. The people who played games got the most amount of views. So I don't know if that's necessarily true now in the Mr. Beast age, but when I first started, it was definitely like I want to make several different YouTube channels, but keep it all under the one brand so that if you want to follow everything I do, you can. But if you don't, you can just pick and choose. So my favorite color is and still was red. So because I figured Tailosive gaming was probably going to be the biggest one, it sounds hilarious now because it's like the most dead. But I figured that channel is the most likely to blow up. So I'll make that one my favorite color. I'll make it red. And I liked blue, but I was like, I can do some tech videos because I watch a lot of those, and I'm kind of interested in Apple and tech stuff. So I'll do a tech channel, and a lot of accents with Apple have always been blue, like when you highlight text or the menus and stuff. the old Finder, and still the new Finder app and Safari and stuff. Apple's always just kind of had a blue emphasis in their colors, so I thought blue would make sense for tech, red for gaming, but of course didn't go the way I thought. I did a lot of gaming stuff and it never really took off, never really went anywhere. I did a lot of movie review stuff, didn't really go anywhere. Even tried to get into the music scene and that didn't that didn't go anywhere. But the tech stuff took a couple of years. At the first, I did tech videos for I think 2 years before anyone started watching them. No one was really watching them, but eventually I started getting views on those, and I realized at the time that they were getting views that I was actually watching way more tech videos than I was gaming videos. So I was like, well, maybe I'm a tech YouTuber now. So it just kind of snowballed from there. Imagine Tailosive 50th anniversary. Oh, that would be fun. When is that going to happen? We hit 10 years. The first Tailosive channel was January of 2010. So in January of 2060, we can celebrate 50 years. How many years have I been on YouTube? Well, I've been posting YouTube videos since 2008 on some channels that I can't access. I don't remember the passwords, and when I made the channels, they weren't attached. It was before YouTube had required a Gmail, and I've tried every password I could possibly think of and then variations of those passwords, and I've tried contacting YouTube and telling them who's in those videos. I'm in those videos. I promise you I can verify that I'm the one in those videos. I can verify that I'm the owner of that channel, and they don't care. It doesn't matter what I say. They won't give me access. But 2008 was when I first started uploading. I didn't make enough off of YouTube though until May of 2017 was when I was making enough that I quit my job and just did YouTube full time. So I've been doing YouTube full time for 2017? Wow. Okay. 5.5 years now. And loving it. Very much grateful for you guys making this possible. But yeah, just acknowledge that I was doing YouTube as a hobby, as a part-time thing, not as a paid gig. And honestly, the first 6-7 years of YouTube, I literally got no views. Like, no one watched my videos. I never got discovered. I never got comment. The only people that were watching my videos were people I knew in my personal life that I would tell about. You know, that I would make videos with my friends, and then my friends would watch the video, but that was it. There was no discovery from people I didn't know until early 2016 or somewhere around there. Do you think Elon said hi to Phil Schiller when he was at Apple campus? I don't think Phil Schiller is there. I think Apple fellow means that he's basically retired. What do you think about the Brian Tong interview with Tim Cook and how Tim Cook says they're an open source platform? I didn't hear him say that. It sounds like context is not being included, but I don't have many thoughts on it because I didn't watch it. Sorry. I'll revive gaming for you. It's just cussing at my TV playing FIFA 23. I appreciate that, but honestly, I think that YouTube, when they notice a channel is dead or inactive for extended periods, they don't recommend or promote the content as much. I don't know if this is for sure how it works, but I've noticed that new channels that just start and then start getting attention tend to get picked up in the algorithm very, very quickly. And YouTube pushes them out and promotes them when they're young. Whereas if the channel is old and hasn't done anything in a long time, it kind of gets pushed to the back because YouTube recognizes this channel is known for being inactive, so we don't want to push the content to that many people. I could be wrong on that, but there's a trend I've noticed where young channels will blow up and perform very well compared to old channels that try to revive not performing as well. It's just a theory. I it could be wrong, but I get a feeling. What introduced you to YouTube and made you want to create your own channel? I just started watching it, and there were a lot of people I liked watching. And I was like, well, I want to do this. First YouTube video I watched was Charlie the Unicorn on dial-up. It took all day to load the video. And then once we got somewhat fast internet, like 1 megabit download internet, I watched a lot of Ed's World and Dom Farah. who still occasionally uploads. Ed Gould, who ran Ed's World, unfortunately passed away uh, about 10 years ago, I think. Other people kind of took over the channel for him and kept it going, but I had a hard time following it because it just made me think about the original guy every time I watched it, and it just made me sad because that was a very, very heartbreaking thing that happened for someone I watched at a very young age. But yeah, I had watched the early guy. I remember watching Fred, uh, Equals 3, Ray William Johnson. I remember watching Tobuscus, Soldier Knows Best, and of course Marquez. Marquez is probably one of the few channels that I watched very early on, and I'm still watching today. Oh yeah, Charlie bit my finger. I remember that. Thank you, Simply Sora, for 5 months of support. Good morning. Waylon Nicholson says, I just want to throw out appreciation for you not buying every new Apple device upon release. 98% of us can't afford to buy a new MacBook Pro, iPad, iPhone, etc. Video. Thanks for keeping it real. No, you're welcome. But I mean, like, I'm not against tech channels that do that because obviously they're trying to review the tech. I just don't think you have to buy it necessarily to know if it's a bad deal. And I think that the iPad 10 and the M2 iPad Pros are bad deals, and I don't have to buy them to tell you that. In 2016, the Tailosive Reddit will be arguing who's the better host. Andrew versus Erickson versus Vasquez. Or Drew is Tobey Maguire and Randy's son is Tom Holland. So Randy's son's the better one. I see. Your theory could be correct. My channel managed to get 1,000 subs after just 3 months of uploading, and I uploaded once a week. I just noticed that if a channel I'm aware of, I've seen other channels that don't do anything for a long time, and then they come back with regularly posted content that's good. It's not bad, but they were just on hiatus and they were away for a long time. They don't get the same performance. The video doesn't get pushed. Their videos don't get pushed as much. They don't show up and recommended as much. I think that extended periods of inactivity put red flags on your channel. I don't know if that's true, but it's just a theory I have. So I get the impression that if you want to start doing gaming content on YouTube, you'll probably do better if you don't take over Tailosive Gaming. I could be wrong, but I think that's how it works. Let's see. Suggest to watch Genius Bar podcast. Dave 2D is on it. Had no Dave 2D is not full-time YouTube. It's a side hustle. I didn't know that. That's interesting. But I can barely keep up with the EV channels I am watching. I don't spend that much time watching tech content, but that's cool. I'm glad he's okay. A lot of people were worried about Dave 2D for a while because he was in South Korea during that horrible stampede that a bunch of people died in. So a lot of people thought he was in trouble because he was like inactive for several weeks, but I'm glad to see he started posting again. I was like, okay, good. Yeah, everything Apple Pro, from what I've heard, he's fine. He just has focused all of his attention on his phone case company. I don't think he was enjoying YouTube that much. So he's just doing phone case stuff now and doesn't feel the need or desire to do YouTube, I guess, that regularly. If iPads are just as good as computers, why not just buy a computer? I don't get it. Well, if it's the same price as a laptop, then yeah, depending on what you're doing, the laptop's probably better. But most people buying iPads are buying the $300 iPad. And any laptop you can buy for $300 is probably going to be worse than what the cheapest iPad is. It's so weird that Tim Cook told Brian Tong that Apple is a very open source company and very modular when they are the exact opposite. Well, in their own head, they probably think they are. I mean, Apple described the Mac Studio as modular. I thought that was hilarious. It has ports, therefore it is modular. I was like, right. Is there a way to support your channel more? You're just encouraging me to do an ad. Well, you're already supporting very much because you're on Tailosive Tech Plus. We have other tiers if you want shout-outs, by the way. Special shout-out to Tyler Forte. He's the first guy to sign up for Tailosive Tech Ultra. I'm trying to reach out to him so that we can do our collab, but I can't get a hold of him. But yeah, there's Tailosive Tech Pro, which gets your name in the outros of the videos. Tailosive Tech Max, which makes you a moderator. And I'll collab with you if you sign up for Tailosive Tech Ultra. But those are, I guess, the best ways to support me extra, but don't worry about it. You're helping me just watching the live stream, watching the videos. That's enough. I'm very grateful that you're just willing to watch. If you're willing to pitch in monthly, that's even more amazing. Um, it's the first link in the description. You got to do it through a browser. You can't do it through the app. But yeah, first link in the description is how you sign up for those. I want Apple to release the updated version of the OG HomePods. They sound amazing. I would love to use it as a stereo pair. They do. I still use mine, but you can buy them secondhand for pretty cheap now. But they just didn't sell that well. I feel like if it was selling well, they probably would have made another one, but they didn't make another one. So, sorry, they haven't gotten around to anything. But Nest is definitely crushing it. Nest has had far more success in the smart speaker space, and they have noticed that the only way you can convince people to buy higher end smart speakers is if they have a display, which is kind of interesting. I like to visualize a HomePod that you can dock your iPad with, and then you have like center stage with a good sound system, and that can be kind of like your home hub, Apple hub. And when someone rings the doorbell, they show up on that screen and that kind of thing. That's the only like higher end direction I think Apple could go, because they tried to do like just the make it sound really, really good and make it really loud. But as cool as it is, it just doesn't, people don't want to buy smart speakers that sound really good. They want to, if someone buys a smart speaker, it's because it's cheap. And Google tried as well with the Google Home Max. I still use mine. We still have it. I've been thinking maybe we should review that like 5 years later or whatever, but I put that in the poll for the channel members and no one voted for it, or like very few people voted for it. So I was like, okay, no one wants me to talk about the Google Home Max, whatever, but we still have it, but Google didn't go back in that direction. They made one, no one bought it except me, and then they stayed with the like, if you're going to do a smart speaker, you need to do the sub $100 price point. Just a Home Max from Google with a removable tablet, kind of, except cheaper. I don't think it would sell if it was $400 like the old one was. You need to do a video on the Brian Tong Tim Cook interview. It's very hypocritical answers. That, I mean, what's the news? Tim says things to make Apple look good that aren't true. Really? Does that surprise you, Edward? I mean, what's there to talk about? Apple said they're open source. They are not, though. What do you think? Comment down below. It's like, I don't... Of course, Apple says they care about privacy, and then they outsource the Siri recordings, and then they get caught not caring about our privacy after bragging about privacy. It's like, it's Tim Cook isn't a loose cannon. He says things very calculated, very PR-friendly way. Tell us about the Apple car. Oh, I can't. You're the boss. Oh, I guess I could. I choose not to. You know, he just stays true. Stays as long as Apple looks good. Would you rather have an off the record? Who would I rather have an off the record interview with, Tim or Elon? Definitely Tim, because Elon doesn't hide anything. Elon just says everything he's thinking, which is often a bad idea. Elon likes to say things before he's thought about what he's saying. I don't think there's I don't think the on the record versus off the record interview with Elon would be very different. I think he would probably say the exact same things, whether he was on or off. Tim would probably say things very differently if he was not on the record. If he was not being recorded or interviewed, he would probably give you different answers. Bro needs to change his name from Apple Sheep to Apple Grinch. That would be good. I like Apple Grinch. Dude, The Grinch is such a good movie. We watched that a couple days ago, the Jim Carrey one. So well done. Just the acting and the sets and the cinematography. They got that Dr. Seuss vibe so incredibly well. And it's Christmas time, so we're going through all the Christmas movies, and oh my God, that is just such an amazing film. The makeup too. They just went overboard. They went like all out. Everybody, Jim Carrey went 100%. All the actors went 100%. Like, my God, that was insanely good. There's a Grinch horror movie coming out next month. Ugh, no thanks. Can't wait to watch Elf for the 50th time this year. Yeah, we already watched Elf. You gotta do it. But we did also see Spirited on Apple TV Plus. It was pretty good. Apple says the opposite of what they do in such a way that the artists go, you're exactly the opposite of that versus using a calculator, business answer like Nintendo would do. I'm not surprised, is all I'm trying to say. Apple always gives the business answer, so does Nintendo. They asked they asked Craig if they would switch to USB-C, and he said, "Who's to say?" It was like the most cop out answer I've ever seen. The fact that Apple is so secret about everything makes me wonder why they bother doing these interviews. The Apple execs just praise themselves and their company for an hour. I know, that's a good point, Margel. I don't really understand why they do them either. Like, I thought maybe Craig and Jaws got into that Wall Street Journal interview and they didn't realize that they were going to ask him all these USB-C questions and put him on the spot. But Randy on the podcast pointed out that this was the exact same interviewer that asked Craig about the mixed reality headset. She was like, "How's the headset coming?" And he was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." You know. So what are they just teasing us? Like, I don't know what they think it's helping with. They're like, "See, we met with the press. We do interviews." It's like, I don't know, maybe it's just checks a box that says, well, if we at least do the interview, that means that we're willing to talk. That means we're open. Oh my God, Riley, no! Someone else did it. Holy crap. Riley McGinnis upgraded to Tailosive Tech Ultra. That's insane. Special shout out. I got to give a verbal shout out to everybody on Tailosive Tech Ultra. So thank you so much, Riley. I can't believe I put that there as a joke, but every time I do that, someone signs up for it. The absolute mad lad signed up for Tailosive Tech Ultra. Okay, are we can I talk to you on Twitter? Where are you? Are you on Twitter? Or Discord? We need to connect and figure out when we're gonna do the collab, because you just earned a collab. Thank you very much. That's very generous. Oh my God, I'm amazed. That's insane that someone signed up for that. That's insane. Thank you so much, Riley. Oh my God, the Ultra members. That's crazy. Okay, so if you want to reach out to me, there's Discord, there's Twitter, and that way we can schedule a time. That's the best way to contact me. Wow. I'm convinced Nintendo isn't run by actual humans. What are they, Goombas? But yeah, I bet like the Apple executive team is just like checking boxes, and they're like, "See, we have to meet with someone, and if we meet with someone, then that means we're not too closed off. We're not willing to talk." But of course, the problem is every time Apple goes and does an interview, they basically just don't answer any of the actual interesting questions. And the only things that Apple will answer are questions that make them look good. So you have to go into the interview with pre-scheduled questions and basically go in saying, "So, Apple, you care a lot about privacy. Why?" And then Craig is like, "Well, we think privacy is a crucial argument." And it's like, "So, Apple, how did you make the iPhone so good? It's just amazing how good you made it." And they are like, "Well, we work really hard." That's the only things they'll answer. They're like, "Apple, why does the Lightning port still exist on the iPhone?" And who's to say? They basically just shrug. Have you seen the video of Tim waving the flag at the NASCAR race with the most blank expression on his face? I've never laughed so hard, and I don't know why. Yes, I've seen lots of, like, off the cuff, like, Tim doesn't realize he's being recorded moments with him, and they're always hilarious. He's just, I'd like to get to know him off the record. He's always very polite and calculated when he's talking in his interviews and stuff, but I want to see what he's like off camera. I think he's an interesting guy because, like I said in the beginning, Tim Cook changed his name to Tim Apple when Tim Apple was trending on Twitter. He leaned into the memes a bit, and he's talked with Elon. He's following Elon now. Like, it just makes me wonder what he's like. And I think he's probably kind of a funny guy. Tim Cook didn't invite him over. Elon came in and said, "Get ready, I'm taking over." No, you can't get in. Trust me, I've tried. You're not getting into Apple without an invitation, I assure you. Even if you're Elon Musk, you can't just walk in the door. There's not even a very easy place to get in. Um, there's not like a lock you can just walk by. If you're in the portion of Apple that Elon was at with the pond and everything, you were invited. He was welcome in. M2 Pro chip in small form factor case is a home game console. Why doesn't Apple pursue this? Oh boy, are we going down that train again? For the last time, making gaming hardware is easy. Making a gaming device is hard because that requires game developers to optimize their game for your platform, which isn't going to happen because the gamer user base is very small for Apple. They could make the best gaming chip in the world, but if no one makes their games for it, then it doesn't matter. Elon and Biden having a conversation would make me lose brain cells. That would be kind of funny. Just watching Biden makes me lose brain cells, to be honest. I hate all politics, for the record. I don't support any political party. I'm apolitical. I don't really like the two-party system, and I don't like any political figure. I don't really follow politics, but I occasionally see Joe Biden appear in memes, and I don't know what he's like the rest of the time, but when he shows up in memes, my God, that guy has a hard time getting some words together. But I don't like Trump. Would you think Steve Jobs would be this playful like Tim Cook today? No, I think Steve Jobs would be more of a type A. He would be more off the cuff. He would be kind of more like Elon, I think. Why did he stop doing Good Morning for a while and then return to it? He probably thought that everyone was joking about him saying good morning, and he was like, oh, maybe people think I'm weird for always saying good morning. I'll stop. And then everyone's like, why isn't he saying good morning? He was like, oh, people like it. Okay, I'll keep it going. But honestly, it doesn't make much sense when there's millions of people watching it from the other side of the world who are watching it in the evening or the afternoon. So for those people, why say good morning? I guess it makes more sense to be universal to just say welcome to Apple such and such. I'm still waiting for Thanos phone in macOS Big Chungus. Me too, Sammy. Me too. I don't think Steve Jobs would make peace with Elon. They probably would just fight and argue. They're too similar. We drove by Apple Park and tried to take a pic of the exterior from the car, and the security guards were trying to yell at us and not to do so, even though it's a harmless thing. I know, I've been there. I've been to the visitor center. I've been right outside. That is not a place you go in unless you have an invitation, that's for sure. Elon the Republican versus Tim the Democrat presidential debate would break world records. Oh, it's funny to imagine a Democrat in charge of $1 trillion company like Apple. Where's macOS Weed? That's a good question. I dropped my MacBook a few days ago. I still haven't recovered from shock. The computer is okay. I'm not. Oh no, that's terrible. I've had nightmares like that. I'm sorry to hear it, Edith. Jeez, is it almost noon already? My God, time flies. It sure does when I'm live, because I feel like I've not been live for very long. Sorry if I've been consuming a lot of your guys' day. Mac Gaming has kind of been popping off, though. Resident Evil and No Man's Sky ports. Ask anyone who considers themselves a gamer if you think that adding No Man's Sky and Resident Evil makes it a gaming device. Everyone will be like, what? So it's a gaming computer now because it runs Resident Evil? No, like all those gaming people are like, no. It's not RGB. It's not modular. You can't build it yourself. It's not good for gamers. That's how most of the PC master race goes. There's a lot of meaning behind that term. I think he switched to hello and welcome for the sake of being universal for online events, but he went back to saying good morning once there were people watching at Apple Park in person. Oh, interesting. That's a good theory. Absolutely still not, but hey, in a year or so, I'm optimistic. I'm not. I'm very doubtful that, because again, for it to be worth it to the game companies, there has to be a large Mac gamer base, and there just isn't. As long as there's not much money coming out of the Mac users, there's not going to be much money going towards Mac gaming. We don't need to go political. That's when someone asks, why don't you like Trump? That's how you know it's time to get off the internet and go outside. If we hear questions like why you do or don't like blank political figure. We've finished the live stream, everyone. It's been fun. I can't believe Riley McGinnis. Did he say anything after he signed up? I hope it wasn't an accident. I don't think he said anything. But please reach out to me on Twitter or Discord and let me know when you want to collab. I'm very flattered that someone signed up for Ultra. You guys are incredibly generous, and I love chatting with y'all. So thank you all for making this time. When is I Love Louise season 2 premiering? Probably never. Sorry. She's not on board. And I don't have the time for it anyway. But Louise doesn't love being on camera. Let's just put it that way. She likes being behind the scenes. Thank you all for tuning in. And I hope you have an excellent rest of your day.